Hello, everyone, and welcome to SmashBoxxTV's podcast 191. Jerry Miller, the disc golf guy, here, along with Johnny V. And it's April 17th, and I'm going to get back to it. We've done as much as talk a few times about timestamps. I think there's a couple of significant timestamps today. Do you want to guess that? Guess one of them.
Barbara Bush passed away just moments ago.
Okay, I didn't even I wasn't up to date.
Yep, former First Lady Barbara Bush passed away at 93. Just in general, I'm not political or anything, but just seemed like a very wonderful person.
Yes. So rest in peace, Barbara Bush. A couple other ones that I saw. Of course, today is officially tax day, although it is April 17th, not the 15th. Yesterday was considered a holiday. Seems like they're on holiday every other day in Washington, D.C., right? That's why it got pushed back?
No. Apparently one of the major processors had some huge computer thing, and so they decided to push that back a day.
No. So obviously normally it's the 15th. Well, the 15th fell on a Sunday.
Yep.
So then by default would have got pushed back to Monday the 16th, but they didn't do Monday the 16th because of some holiday. It's officially a holiday of sorts in, I think, Washington, D.C. is what I thought I heard. So that's why it was always deemed the 17th, and then as of today, it got pushed back and extended into tomorrow due to some processing issues that you speak of. But today was supposed to be the official tax day. Again, yesterday was it was not ever to be on the 16th due to the holiday that was taking place. So that's a timestamp.
We've been getting people telling us it's time to get rid of the Smashbox snow logo. And I keep telling people I'll get rid of it when the snow goes away. We got hit with, here in town, about 7 inches of snow. Heavy, wet, yucky snow here on it was April 15th and 16th. Yeah. Further up north, my in-laws got hit with 30 inches up in Sturgeon Bay. We're supposed to get hit with a little bit of snow tomorrow. I can't get rid of it, guys. I cannot get rid of the snow.
Maybe it's actually your fault. Maybe because you left the snow logo up longer than you should have, we were then. That's possible. So
I can't claim that.
And we're at Johnny V's location here in Milwaukee. As you said, about 7 inches of snow. Just an hour south where I was running my tournament this weekend, which we'll get into later. Not nearly as much snow, but instead a lot of freezing rain and ridiculous ice. And then an hour south of that in Chicago, exclusively rain. But a nasty snowstorm rolled throughout most of the country this weekend. We'll move on from that. Another quick timestamp. Today, unfortunately, and as many of you already know, I'm as big a proponent as any of Southwest Airlines. There was an engine that blew in a Southwest Airlines flight. I think it was 1380. An engine that blew, and unfortunately there was a single fatality that as a result of that.
First in-flight fatality since 2009.
Which is amazing. And, of course, unfortunate for that family, not to downplay any of that, but to think about, just how safe air travel in the U.S. has been, to think that's their first in-flight fatality, like you said, since 2009 is
truly, U.S.
Yes, in the U.S. is truly incredible. I saw a post, not to pick on someone too much, but I saw a post where someone's like, well, I'm supposed to travel next week with my kids, and I just don't know. And I'm like, again, you're more likely to have a fatal accident on the way to an airport than you are actually in a plane. So, but anyway, so sorry to hear that, of course. But that was also in the news today. So lots of things. And some would say, someone already posted, maybe the biggest news, the timestamp of today. I gave away 3 portable baskets earlier today to my Patreon supporters.
Don't break your arm, patting yourself on the back.
If anything, it's to hug, to reach out and embrace and hug my Patreon supporters of the Disc Golf Guys vlog channel. That's how I'd break my arm. So, and also the PDGA ratings were updated, which I ain't got time to care about those. But we'll talk about them later. I just personally don't care. So, yeah, lots of stuff going on. So those are your half dozen timestamps for April 17th, 2018. Also, less than a week away from GBO, and I think that's on everybody's mind. So, Before we get there, we've got some action to recap from this last weekend. Let's bring in the man with the beard, Dynamite Dana Vicich.
I think he's sleeping.
Dynamite.
Me?
It's you.
You have I'm so jealous of all the looks that Dynamite can present within a few given weeks. Beard, big beard, little beard, no beard,
it's
mustache, crazy mustache, short hair, curly hair.
He took off the sides really tight. And your beard is very well kept, it looks like right now. Like you just recently trimmed it. It's very well formed.
Looking good, buddy. We appreciate it. How you doing?
I'm good. Some chump Smashy was ripping on my hair last week, so I had to go freshen up yesterday.
They do it out of love.
$20 for the haircut. I don't know. I don't remember who it was, but message me. I'll give you my PayPal. It was $20 with a tip. So
you are even as a regular contributor, you are not exempt from the scorn and the wrath that is the internet's Dynamite. We're glad to have you, though.
I'm well aware. Yeah, I'm well aware. I think I put myself in those positions, though. So, but here we are. Let's talk some disc golf. What do you guys say?
Yeah, let's do it, buddy. There's a lot of action all around the country.
A couple majors, technically.
Sports Center action, team play, match play, singles, college. Just about everything. What jumped out at you first, Dynamite?
Definitely, as I messaged you before, I said, don't mention anything about the college stuff because I didn't read up on it.
Check. Okay, I didn't.
But there was a major. I didn't. So thanks for setting me up for success here, Terry. It's really appreciated. I am going to start with an A tier. Texas State Disc Golf Championships. And you referenced aces and Sport Center top 10. We had Jomez down there capturing 3 rounds. And over those 3 rounds, they caught 2 aces. First was Bradley Williams, who did not make the cut for Sports Center. And then later in the event, round 2, Paul Ulibarri. He got himself a pretty sweet forehand ace. Had their little shot tracker on it, and looked. It was a pretty good cut on there on top 10. But so shout out to Jomez for being there and catching that and getting it turned around, and for our peoples over at the ESPN in Bristol. Thank you. It's always cool to see an ace on Sports Center, even though I don't have ESPN or Sports Center or anything. I saw the clips on Facebook, so it kind of counts.
It does count.
But yeah, as for the tournament, A tier, 265 total players, 46 of them in the Open, and then there's a 12-person FPO field, really tightly contested battle, with third place only being 4 strokes out of the lead. And when it was all said and done, Lisa Ficus and Rebecca Cox tied for third place at 14 over. Holcomb was at 12 over in second place, and Jessica Weiss, got herself an A-tier victory. And her second round was 1,000 rated. And that really was the difference on the weekend, because Holcomb beat her round 1 and round 3. It was just round 2. Jessica shot a 57,000 rated, and Sarah shot a 65, which was 931 rated. So not a bad round from Sarah. Just Jay Weezy got hot. Now on the men's side, pretty exciting battle. I caught some of the action on Jomez. Had it on the TV while doing some family stuff, but yeah, it was a really close battle between Paul Ulibarri and Anthony A.P. Perkins. If you look at the scoreboard, though, Double G Garrett, he was only two throws off the win, but that was coming from the second card. He shot a really hot first round and a really hot final round, and not so hot in between. But he had Jay Weezy's second round, Double G would have won. But instead, it came down to the last hole with AP and Yuli, and this AP guy had the box over Paul, and he put the pressure on him. He put it about 20 feet from the basket for birdie, and Yuli left himself short in kind of a tough angle with a tree between him and the basket. He had a little jumper to push it, and couldn't do it. Hit the cage, and Anthony Perkins, 974 rated, PDGA 71308, got himself an A-tier victory. His final round was rated 1051. He beat Yuli by 3 throws there, and it was a pretty exciting watch. A lot of good action there, and a good golf. My biggest takeaway, and I think Ulibarri and my grandma's calling. That's weird. It's kind of late for grandma.
If you need to take that, Dana, we can put you on hold.
Sorry, grandma. Yeah, actually, put me on hold.
All right.
Okay, we'll do that.
We'll come back to you, Dana.
All right, we'll come back to Dana.
So, one of the things that I noticed, obviously, with Ulibarri losing by one particular stroke, a lot of people for skip ace actually pick chalk. So what they sorry, we're getting a little bit of Dana here. Anyway, so a lot of people pick chalk, which means they went according to the top ratings. And if you did that for men and women, you only got 2 out of the 4 for men and 1 out of the 2 for women. So I did not look at what my particular picks were. I think I went mostly chalk, but I definitely did not pick Anthony Perkins, and I did not pick Trevor Harbolt. So kind of interesting stuff. A lot of people picked Bradley, who, scored you a couple points there, but definitely didn't get you all the points that were required. So, well,
I'd be curious to know, and I know this is a report you should have run before tonight. I'd be curious to know how many people did pick Anthony. Like, how many people picked him, period? Because as you said, if you're going straight ratings, you wouldn't even thought about picking him. You didn't need to pick him to save any of those extra ratings points because you had plenty of room otherwise. Mm-hmm. So I'd be curious to know that.
Maybe I'll dig that info up for later. We're going to bring Dana back. Grandma's apparently fine and dandy, so.
Welcome back, Dynamite. So we were just talking about, and maybe it'll lead to our question is, we were talking about people if they were to pick him, why they would have picked Anthony. Of course, that there was a little bit of extra ratings room if you were following along with fantasy, that you didn't need to go with any dark horses or lower rated picks, for instance. But this Anthony comes in at 974. I don't know him personally. Clearly, he's got game for besting the field that he did. And I'll go out on a limb here and say, do you know much about him other than how kind of the final holes unfolded? Or maybe what you saw in footage. Do you know anything about Anthony? And if not, what do we need to know about him?
What I do know is he's got a great putting stroke, really, really firm, really confident. All weekend, over the 2 rounds that I saw him play, he was smashing putts. If he was right on the circle or inside the circle, he was putting them in. Really impressive on the putting green. And if you're confident on the putting green, that takes a lot of pressure off the rest of your game. So he definitely took advantage of the great putting, and made some good putts down the stretch, and even saw him running some long putts aggressively, and then making the comebackers there that final round. And I was pretty impressed with it. But I want to say that it looked like he was wearing a shirt. Looked like he might have been sponsored by where the tournament was at. That might have been so maybe these were his home courses. So if you really if you're in the Texas region and knew AP and knew where he plays a lot, I think that he might have been sponsored by one of the places that the tournament was at. So
okay, well
that's my big takeaway on that. If you putt like that, that takes so much pressure off everything else, and you can slowly work on your throwing game. But putting the disc in the basket like that, it's gonna you're going to win tournaments, and that's what he did.
Well, I'm just real quickly looking at his lineup here. It looks like his first rating was in 2015, where he was rated 938. He has slowly and steadily increased his rating throughout that time. His peak was last year at 975. This last event, of course, wasn't in his rating that came out today, or recently. But 974 is what he's rated, and someone had said, wasn't he 1,000 already? And he hasn't been. So solid performance. Congratulations to him. He bested a very, very solid field. And if you want to call it, I would certainly say anyone that picked him to win it.
69 people.
69 people had him in the top four.
Had him in the top 4.
Wow. So clearly a lot of people knew something that the rest of us didn't. So very, very impressive for Anthony. So congratulations, solid play, and to him and on the women's side. What else did we see out there, Dynamite?
Yeah, let's head over to Florida for the Jacksonville Open. This was presented by Ron Russell. What year did Ron Russell win
99
PDGA World Championships? What's Ron Russell's PDGA number?
99999.
That's one too many nines.
Yeah,
he won in 99.
He won in 99.
His PDGA number is 9999.
And his PDGA that's pretty cool.
That's crazy. Ending Ken Climo's 9th his titles run in a row at 9. And he won it in the final 9.
He played the 9th hole a few times.
Yes. So, yes, good old Ron Russell. Awesome.
Yeah, Ron Russell, he's a legend. From Michigan, he used to be a touring guy. Big, tall, definitely, he was kind of jacked, it seemed. But heck of a putter. Really good golfer. Obviously, if he beat Kenny in Kenny's heyday and stopped him from winning his 9th in 99. That's pretty cool stuff. But also cool that Ron Russell and his company, Ron Russell Roofing, sponsor the Jacksonville Open. And I see that every year. So that's pretty cool that he, even though we don't see him out playing on the scene and everything, he's still involved at least in sponsoring this event. And so pretty cool stuff. And I feel like the payouts are usually pretty big down in Jacksonville for the Jacksonville Open. I hear it's a great event. So this was the pro weekend, 83 total players. It was a B tier, and I didn't realize Macbeth was going to be down there. Figured we'd just be seeing him at mostly the A tiers, big A tiers, NTs, DG Disc Golf Pro Tour events and majors. But he went down to Jacksonville, and he shredded, but he didn't shred as hard as Nicholas Masters' first round.
Wow.
Nick Masters 42, which was rated 1087. Pretty smoking. So Masters was beating Paul by 3. So Paul shot a 45, which was 1057 rated. So pretty darn good golf. But as we see so often, it's really hard to follow up, maybe your career best round with another great round. And Nicholas struggled round 2, shooting a 51, which was 957 rated. But he had distanced himself from the field so much with his great first round, he was still sitting up there in the lead card and in second place ahead of Cameron Colglazer. And final round, Macbeth distanced himself from the field even further, but Nicholas did shoot another good round to finish in second place, 3 strokes ahead of Cameron Colglazer. But Macbeth, 1057, 1038, 1057.
Shot his rating.
It's pretty good. Yeah. Was it 1050 exactly?
Something like that.
Yeah. But some more of that. Paul's gonna need some more of that to keep the rating up there in that 1050 range. So a good bounce back from his tough weekend in Arkansas, but probably a lot warmer in Jacksonville, a lot more up his alley. So whatever it was, Paul shredded. On the women's side, 9 FPO players. Lane King came down south, got herself the victory, and I'd say one of the big things was Hannah Macbeth. She finished in second place, shooting really well, just 3 throws behind Elaine King, getting second place. So nice shooting to both Elaine and Hannah. Winning on the men's side, Schwebe, he don't call it a comeback, final round, beat Sean Lankowitz by 8 throws to get a 1 throw victory over him. So big time comeback for Schwebe.
Yeah, that looked like it was a combination. That looked like it was a combination of Schwebe shooting well and Sean shooting under what he had been shooting. So the mixture of the two let Schwebe kind of get a little comeback. Nothing to scoff at a 10-18 round, but that's only a few points over his current rating as opposed to Sean, who shot his particular rating that last round. So things coming back a little bit more to the mean, but congratulations to Schwebe on that other victory.
When you hear Schwebe breathing down your neck,
it's probably because he's really creepy and stands behind you and breathes on your neck.
He's a good hugger, too.
Yes.
But Schwebe getting it done, and Schwebe's out on the board. He says, boom, I would say so. Congratulations to you, Schwebe.
Definitely.
That makes Schwebe, I think that gives him his 4 millionth win. So congratulations, Schwebe. You heard it here first.
Yeah, I think that's definitely accurate. Also, there was another A-tier in Arkansas, but I also wanted to mention here in Illinois, well, actually Northwest Indiana at Lemon Lake, was the Discontinuum Club Challenge, and this is turned into a really big local unsanctioned event, and winning it for the 3rd year in a row was J-Town, Joliet Disc Golf Club, and they beat Fox Valley Metro, who finished in 2nd. And I think Fox Valley went from last place last year to almost winning it this year, getting 2nd place. But 247 total players, some pretty crummy weather. Terry, you know all about this crummy weather from the weekend. But that was local, and not local to me was the Vicich Open presented by Dynamic Discs down in Arkansas. We saw a lot of the touring pros just kind of hang out in Arkansas and stay down there for this A-tier event. And 37 total open players, and a number, I'd say almost a dozen of them were 1,000 rated. So really stacked field. And it looked like after 2 rounds that Johnny McRae was going to run away with it, but he stumbled final round, shooting 1,003 rated final round, and got swooped by Joel Freeman out of Colorado. We saw Joel kind of burst on the scene at the beginning of the season at Vegas. Even though Joel's he played 30-something tournaments last year, mostly in that mountain region. He's from Colorado. This is his 2nd A-tier win, but Joel, he's been on tour all year. He's got a bunch of events that he's signed up for. He's basically on tour through Utah Open. Yeah, he got himself a nice little victory, nice little come from behind. I heard there was some video at the event. I haven't seen it pop up yet. I'm looking forward to watching that. I don't know a whole lot about Joel. Do you guys got any insight for me?
Just that he, obviously this year is kind of his coming out year on the tour, and he's been playing pretty well. I know that he's talked to a couple of the other podcast outlets about, his plans and how he feels comfortable and this and that. I think he's one of those names that you're just going to constantly hear about taking down these A tiers, and the bigger events probably taking anywhere from 5th to 10th. I don't quite think he has that staying power to win one of the really big ones against the big competition. Not quite yet, but he keeps touring and keeps playing. He's clearly got the skills to excel at the game. So, but the competition is just so good at the big events that it's hard to pick anyone other than a couple of about 4 different names. So
we also saw him grace the cover of the latest Disc Golfer magazine as well, I recall. So he's got
Yeah,
that
that
bump
would
going.
that would be the same Joel Friedman. You're right, Terry. Good insight. He is 10-13 rated right now, but I mean he won over Johnny McRae, Jeff Renner, Zach Melton, Nick Wood, Oakley, Ricky. Ricky Wysocki. Ricky finished in 7th place at 9 under par. Joel was 17 under par. So pretty poor performance for Rick coming off the big win last weekend. Maybe call it a little bit of a hangover. It looked like he was running a bunch of sake bomb events and doing all that kind of stuff. But James Conrad was there. James is up to 1030. No real surprise there. But Austin Hannum, Chris Clemens was 1024 rated. AJ Risley 1009. This is a stacked field. These are the players that we're seeing at the top of NTs and Disc Golf Pro Tours. So Joel is going to be at the Rumble this coming weekend in the Quad Cities. I will also be there. So I'm looking forward to maybe I could put together a good round or two and play with Joel and see firsthand what his game is like. But he's got an opportunity to go back to back with A tiers before heading over to the Glassblown Open.
You're gonna have to level up at this rate, Dana, because clearly he's playing some good golf. One of the side notes that will get discussed much more in depth a little later in the show, because we're gonna be letting you go here soon to get Scott Stokely in here, and we're gonna catch up with him, who's a long overdue guest in having him join. But one of the interesting side notes, Will Jenkins is out on the board. Will was doing some caddy work. He was caddying for Eric Oakley. I think he did so in Arkansas at the Jonesboro Open. And then he was caddying this weekend and then also did some filming. And again, we'll get into all the details a little bit later, but Will had made a post on his, I believe on the YouTube page originally with the video saying, I filmed the final round here, but per Johnny McRae's request, I actually stopped filming his round and then did not put any of the footage from his round into that final 18-hole round. And there's just so many conversations, and we'll get into some of those. We're going to have some insights, including from the PDGA and beyond. So that's for a much deeper, longer conversation. But I wanted to throw that out there, that will be talked about. So if you're watching that final round, go find Will's channel on YouTube, and you'll be able to watch. But it'll just be the 3 final guys that were on that lead card during the final round, and Sans McRae. Is that an appropriate use there?
I think so.
Anyway, pretty interesting stuff. And yeah.
Oh, this is news to me. This is interesting.
You're gonna get to watch that final round, but not see how the comeback happened exactly. So. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that later in the show.
Yeah, we will. All right, Dynamite.
Interesting stuff. Yeah, that's okay. Thanks for tempting me to stay up. I actually don't really care.
What did we see on? What did we see on the women's side? I zoned out for a moment. I want to make sure. I know I saw Katrina Allen talking about doing clinics in Arkansas. So shout out to her and everyone else that was involved that did anything. We talked about Ricky as well doing them. But what did we see for play on the women's side there? Yeah,
also saw the DD group of touring players doing some clinics as well. So clinics around over in Arkansas. Yeah, on the women's side, just two players, Kayla Barron and Katrina Allen, and Kat came out and shot. She basically shot her rating first round, 961 rated, and then kind of coasted from there with a 949 and a 949 to win by a number of throws. But solid shooting nonetheless from Kat, and so congratulations to her on the win, and Kayla for second.
Okay. Good.
Awesome.
All right, Dynamite. Well, a little later in the show, too, I think we're talking about having Steve Hill join us later.
Yes.
Steve Hill from the PDGA will be able to further dive into media concerns and conversations about all of that, again, to wrap up this Johnny McRae.
And probably the collegiates as well.
And then, therefore, that was exactly what I was going to say is we'll be able to...
Time. Is it too late to make Jomez edit me out of the final round of the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Fine. Is it too late?
There is not enough whiteout in the world to edit out all those shots.
They're pretty good at special effects. They might be able to make some of those shots go in if you ask them really nice.
No, actually what they did, they're going to change it from slow mez to no mez. No way it's going in. All right. You set yourself up too easy. We appreciate it, Dana. Everything's good with Grandma?
She meant to call my dad. She hit the wrong button. So she usually has she's 96. But she likes to have a drink before bed. So I think she was, she might have had it. She sounded like she had her drink. And then when I told her that it was me, not my dad, she quickly got it. She didn't want to talk to me.
Wow.
So she's like, well, what number did I hit for him? And I don't know. I didn't have that answer. So she didn't call me back. So she must have hit the right number and got it right the second time. But
all right.
Yeah.
Well, Mike, if you're watching, we appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, buddy.
All right. You guys have a good rest of the evening. Sounds like a lot of exciting stuff with Stokely, and then the chatter with the PDGA. All sounds very interesting, but I'm going to hit the hay. Night, Smashies.
Good night,
Dana. Buddy. Have a good one. All right. Dana Vicich, of course, him and the interruption from Nana.
You get that sometimes, you know.
Get that sometimes.
When Grandma's had a drink, you just smile and say, "I love you, Grandma. Good night."
I'm doing a podcast, Grandma. I mean, we should have just really got her on.
Just rolled with it.
We should have had Grandma come on in. That's Tim Court says, drunk dialed by Grandma.
I've drunk dialed quite a few people in my day. Usually, an ex-significant other, or you, or something like that. I've never drunk dialed Grandma.
Well,
or vice versa. So
either way. Well, a gentleman that came onto the scene that we saw jump back in hot and heavy a couple years ago, and then he backed out, and now we got him back, and now he's overdue. None other than Mr. Scott Stokely. Welcome to the show, buddy. How are we doing tonight?
Hey, I am doing fantastic.
Good. So let's just start with, I said it a couple times, overdue in having you, for starters. For those who aren't, we'll say a little more older school, like me and Johnny.
Meaning old.
Old school. Old school is just a nice way of saying we're old.
We're very familiar with you. You were one of the top competitors every single weekend when we were coming into the scene in the mid-'90s. You were setting distance records and then breaking your own distance records, or breaking, Chris Voigt's or whomever. Then you were running doubles. You were one of the first to travel around the country doing doubles all over this entire series of them. You and I got partnered up, which I'm sure you remember like yesterday. And you've just done so many things. And then you were gone, and then you came back. And let's start with your heyday. We just talked about Ron Russell ending Kenny's streak. You were in that final foursome in Rochester, New York. You were there. I think you put Ron Russell even on your shoulders at one point.
Yeah,
does that sound about right?
Yeah, it was a really big moment for Ron. It was a big moment for the Discraft team. It was even a big moment for Ken. It was a celebration of 10 years of just whooping everybody for a decade. so even that was was honoring Ken, because it was showing what a big deal it was to actually beat the guy.
Well, you were always there. You were in that foursome as a top-rate contender every week in and week out. And then when did we see you step back from the sport? At what year was that roughly, where we no longer saw you on a week in and week out basis?
Yeah, I basically just quit in 2001. I think it was 2001. My daughter was born, and I've never been comfortable just showing up to play. As much as I love the sport, I didn't need to win every week. Obviously, when Ken's around, you don't win every week. But I needed to feel like I was competing to win every week. And when disc golf became something part-time, I was just going to be showing up to play, and that just that didn't really hold any interest for me.
And what were you seeing? Explain maybe a little bit of the culture. Explain what disc golf was like in those times. We talk about Ken's dominance at events and specifically Worlds, and we, in 2000 we saw Russell and then a Cam Todd come in, win the Worlds in 2001 in Minnesota. Kind of explain though what the world of disc golf was like in your eyes as you were transitioning out.
It started before that. I started playing in 1982. So I actually saw the sport. I mean, when I started playing, I looked it up. There were 75 courses in the world. That means I'm old again, the second reference to being old. So I actually saw it go from the absolute Wild West to evolve into a sport. And I mean, it was always a sport, but it was a very loose sport. And like in the early days of the sport, for example, I mean, it was primarily made up of misfits. And I say that in the most loving way possible. The best people I've known my entire life came from this culture, but disc golf was really weird. It wasn't mainstream. It wasn't something that you would tell your family or your boss about. And so it brought people together that, they shared the love of disc golf, but they also shared a love of a camaraderie of basically having a home that didn't really exist elsewhere. I really think it was the family aspect of disc golf. It exists today, but back then it was very, very close. And I think that's what it was. I mean, we drew misfits.
And to this day, one of the endearing qualities of our sport is I feel like you could parachute. I don't want to make any plain wherever. You could parachute to just about any course in the country today, and within hours of you playing this course you were just dropped into, you would find somebody that is probably willing to put you up for the night, and house you and feed you and let you crash there for a day or a night or a week even. That family-like atmosphere, I don't feel like that's entirely changed. It's maybe even gotten easier, of course, with social media. But thinking way back to those days, we have to think about the pioneers, the original people. People think of Dan Ginley so much now, for instance, as the guy who runs the memorial and is co-owner of Spinners on the Green and has been sponsored by Discraft. But he was one of the first ever touring professionals of all time. And
yeah, absolutely. Well, actually, him and Steve Valencia. Well, it was him and then Steve Valencia were, to the best of my knowledge, were number 2 and number 3 touring guys. The first guy to tour was a player named Glenn Whitlock out of Vancouver, Canada, and the Whittler, right? And Glenn Whitlock, this will tell you what the sport was like. So Glenn did it hitchhiking, basically. He would go to a tournament, and at the tournament, he would find somebody at that tournament that lived in a town where there was a tournament the following weekend, ride back with them, and he basically, I mean, we still to this day couch surf when we travel, but he did it without a vehicle. And actually, so funny aside,
or a license.
Interesting. Yes.
Even if he did have a vehicle, he didn't have a license to drive.
He still doesn't.
Exactly.
To give you an idea of like how interested the people were in the sport back then, Glenn was an actual competitive eater. This sounds like myth until you ask anybody that was there. Glenn's rule of thumb is he would typically eat once a day or once every other day, and he would, because he had no money, he would only eat at restaurants that cost less than $1 a plate. So he would go to an all-you-can-eat restaurant, and this was his rule. Like if it cost $7 for all-you-can-eat spaghetti, well, if it was just one food, he'd get sick of it. So 5 big plates of spaghetti for $7, he wouldn't do it. But he could go to another place that had a variety of food and get 8 or 9 plates of food, legit plates of food for $7, and he would do it. And then he went out to eat for a couple days.
Wow.
And it is not an exaggeration. If you've been there, he would eat for 2 hours and then not eat for 2 days.
And very skinny as a result. And you speak of couch surfing. He stayed at my house in the late 90s when I was in college.
Okay.
So I'm very familiar. And as he made his way around Wisconsin and the Midwest for a few years, one of the most entertaining individuals on the planet for sure. So
he was great. Yeah. And then go ahead.
I was gonna say, no, go finish your thought.
No, I was just saying. So like Glenn was the first one to tour, and then it followed Valencia and Ginley. By the way, I call touring people who are actually on the road playing disc golf for a living. It doesn't matter how much you make. I call it if you're going out and coming home, you're not on tour. For the way I view it. So after that, Jeff and Johnny Lissaman and Mike Williams toured, and I think I was next, but yeah, we were there early.
I think back to really at the time it was life-changing. Well, it felt like it. Back in the mid-'90s, there was a very short MTV clip that had you in it, along with, I believe it was Bamba Rico. I don't think Steve was in it, but I think it was Bamba and a couple other players. And it was MTV Sports, Dan Cortez maybe or something. And it was this little, 1 or 2 or 3 minute clip. And I still have that on VHS somewhere. I haven't converted it yet. Once I find it, I will. And I think it's on YouTube. But I think about how big that was, because that was the mid-'90s. And I was still, I just got into it. I'm in, high school, and I'm saying to these people, yeah, this is going to take off. This is going to be big. Look at MTV. Like, it's on MTV. Oh, my God, it's so big. Where have you seen that we were there versus maybe even where we are today? How does that feel to you?
That's so amazing. Like I said, so I mentioned the sport in the early days was, a collaboration of misfits. When I say misfits, I don't mean non-athletic. I mean just non-traditional looking athletes. And the people that came out of the 80s were 70s and 80s were extremely athletic. By the time we got to the 90s, there were real athletes playing the game. Even though when I left for 13 years and I came back, the athleticism has, it's a whole new level. There's no question. But by the time we got to the 90s, the people who were playing they played sports. We were good.
Now, when you stepped away for the 13 years in 2001, did you keep track of the sport at all? Did you pay attention? I know you had a family and whatnot. Did you follow the sport at all, or was it easier just to kind of turn your back and try to forget about it?
I didn't really follow it because it hurt me to follow it. Now, I made my decision, and not being a part of it was painful, to be honest. So I really kind of lost touch. Not because I didn't love the people or anything, but it's just, it didn't make me feel good. It made me feel more sad than happy reading about a tournament. So I didn't really keep up.
So then what ended up, we'll skip ahead 13 years, what ended up bringing you back? What pulled you back into the sport?
Okay. Well, this is probably my favorite story because of how much it means to me. And this is the one where I try not to cry as I share it. About 4 years ago, I went through a period of depression, divorce, foreclosure, business failing. Like, not to be dramatic, a lot of people have been through this, but it is horrible, right? And I went through about 8 months of really bad depression. I found which was never an issue before or since, but I found that using drugs was something that I used to deal with the depression. Whether it was a good idea or not, well, obviously not is the correct answer. But that's what I did, and I was in a very dark place for about 8 months. And again, this is 100% true. A situation came up where I wandered into a disc golf store in Denver. Okay, let me back up for a second. So going through the divorce, it's maybe a familiar story if you've been there, but I felt like the absolute lowest, most worthless person in the world. I'd lost my partner to somebody else. I just thought I was a piece of crap. I thought I was not worth anything to anybody. That's what depression is, and that's where I was. I wandered into a disc golf store in Denver called Fly Green, and I went in for some other reason, but I opened the door, and I kid you not, I opened the door, and I look, and up on the wall at the back of the store is a poster on the wall of me with my autograph on it. And I went, how could this, I was like, are you kidding me? The guy behind the counter turns around, his name was Bear, turns around and goes, it's Scott Stokely's here, and he runs to the back, shouting my name. People in the back come running out, and next thing I know, I'm signing autographs, and people are telling me about how I was there in 1995 when you threw over the building at CSU, and oh my God, I got all your DVD, and I'm like, you kidding me? And it was this glimmer of, oh my God, I'm not a piece of crap. There's people look up to. Now, this doesn't cure depression, right? I still had many things to overcome, but I got this glimpse of, this is my identity, and this is who I am, and people do look up to me, and I do have value, and I'm going to almost cry. It happens every time, but I believe the sport saved my life, because that's not the direction I was going that morning. And I came back, and then I basically, I can't remember exactly, but within a few weeks I got clean, and that was it. And this is why the story goes, is like why I got these, right, tattooed, because I realized that this is my wedding ring to the sport, is that even no matter how much I play, if I tour or not tour, I want this to forever be who I am, because I will never leave the sport again. I've taken breaks, and I will. I'm old, but that's the short of it. So I got back into it. The sport saved my life. The people in the sport saved my life. Just everybody that made me feel like Scott Stokely, which I hadn't felt in at least, several years at that point.
Now, when you did come back in, and people, people that didn't know you, certainly had this loud, gregarious, fun-loving nature, this force come in, and then people like Johnny and I are like, this is awesome. We have the same response that, maybe that store had. But then when you come back in, you immediately, play a little bit on some humor and some other, we'll say, out-of-the-box antics to jump back in, and you want to call out Paul McBeth, and you have these challenges with Jeremy Colling, and you just kind of really jump back in. I think you take advantage of social media in a lot of ways. All the tools and resources have now developed since before they existed, when you left before, kind of. Explain that, how you arrived at your resurgence and your entry point when you came back a couple years ago.
Okay, so everything was trying to market myself. So I came back to the sport, and I said, I have a home where I can maybe go out and I can try to make a living. I can try to do something. I needed to go tour. I felt like I had to get on the road for myself. I needed to get away from what was going on, things I needed to not be near. That was important, and I needed the affirmations and all the things that I was getting. The problem is that nobody knew who I was. I would try to do something like I'd come to town, and I would post to the Facebook page, and I'd get 2 or 3 old people going, "Oh, this is amazing. I can't believe Scott Stokely's coming to town." And I'd get 40 people go, "Who?" or "So what?" So I wanted to put eyes on what I was doing. So I came up with the idea of starting a rivalry with Paul McBeth. Now, I had never met Paul at the time, but I thought, this will be fun, right? I'm going to start a rivalry with Paul. I mean, it was complete nonsense. I mean, 2 years ago when I was peaking at my best, I still have never beat Paul in a tournament, likely never will. And but I thought this will just be hilarious. So I'm going to call him out. I'm going to make it seem like it's real serious. I'm going to do a little pro wrestling style, promos. And I thought it would be funny. And like anything like that, it was well received by a lot of people. A lot of people couldn't stand it. That's, certainly entitled to have your opinions. I thought it was hilarious. I've since gotten to know Paul. I don't know if he cared much for it, but I think Paul's a really good guy. I like Paul a lot. And but I took advantage of what I thought I needed to do to put eyes on me, to promote my brand.
Well, and in a similar sense, we saw you ultimately in North Carolina, in that area of the country at least. Mm-hmm. Lots of great golf, lots of great legends around there, including, we just saw Schwebby on the board, who has been around for a long time. And then, some interaction. I think there was even a little fundraising effort that took place with Jeremy Colling. So kind of all along those lines, trying to find ways to utilize, social media and get that, generate that buzz, so to speak. And then you took it a step further, and you were kind of harnessing all of that, and you really found a specific focus, and that was with autism awareness and Blue Power, and I guess kind of break down how you arrived at where you did with all of that.
Yeah. So the short of it is, I was in a relationship with a woman with an adult son with autism, and I was and still am a complete outsider of this community. I mean, I only know it from an outsider's perspective. But I started thinking, well, at first I was just thinking, hey, this will be a fun thing I can do for something that I care about, for people who I care about, and try to, just do some, raise some awareness for it. I started offering classes for kids and adults with special needs, free classes. I'd give everybody a disc and a shirt for coming out. It was very fly by night. But what started happening was people started coming to these events and then posting and emailing me and starting to tell me how much this meant to me. And it's funny. I was looking for the book today. I wanted to break it out just for fun. I actually, after I did this for walks, I ended up running 270 events, and I have a book with about 300, not about, with 300 emails from people in the special needs community, families, telling me how much I meant to them. And especially early on, when I was still trying to recover from depression, still trying to make sure I was going to continue on this right path, I would literally at times pop open this book and I would read what people said about me. And, there's probably plenty of people that find that very narcissistic, that I'm reading compliments about me, but I don't care. This is how I reminded myself I had value. It's how I reminded myself that I was doing something important and I was helping people. And this is where my identity was based off of for a huge amount. I've said this to this day. I did all those events for me. I did those because this is how I healed me, and giving back is what made me feel like I mattered, and that's why I did it. So it became very symbiotic, right? I was trying to do things for people with special needs and their families, but I was simultaneously doing as much or more for myself in the process.
Well, and I can speak to one very specific example of being in Texas 2 years ago when you were down there, and you were hosting one of your free clinics, and there were a handful of people, I maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever that had showed up in particular, and I watched you, and I did a little bit of filming, but more importantly, I watched you interact with each and every one of those participants, and as I know, and anyone that puts on any kind of demonstration or clinic, sometimes when you have a small crowd, it can be really advantageous because you get to work one-on-one. And sometimes when you have a smaller crowd than when you expect, it almost, you maybe even second guess yourself and you think, well, I'm putting myself out here, but only a couple people are showing up. Well, the fact that there were only a couple people there gave you that opportunity, but more importantly, it still, I could tell that you gave it still 110%. And that's what really spoke to me while you were out there doing it, is because I think it's easy sometimes to kind of to not give it that 100% and be like, all right, there's only a couple people here, let's get through this. This isn't a full good use of my time. But when you were doing it, I at no point got that impression, and so I very much commend you for that, because it's a lot of work, and you worked really hard at it.
Yeah, and it's always a good use of time. I had out of 270 events, I had a number of them with 0 people show up. Part of the problem is I really spread myself very thin, trying to do events every single night, and the amount of promotion I could do for the events, I could only do so much. And so we had those events. But I believe, this is just opinion, but even when I didn't do an event, people were talking about autism. People were posting about it. People knew that somebody was in town to do it. Even if they didn't come out, they appreciated it. But I've always thought, not always, it's not fair. Since I started doing this, I've believed that I wouldn't even know how to start affecting national or global change in this area. I don't think I can do that. But I can affect families one at a time. And for those families, it's life-changing. The whole idea of this is that for people with special needs, I believe that disc golf is the greatest sport in the world. There's 3 reasons for this. The first is that it's free. Most families with special needs kids, let's say kids and adults, but disposable income is not something most of them have. I mean, you have some parents who can't work even, who are taking care of their child. There's not money to do things. Well, disc golf is free, and I would give them a disc, for coming out. So they'd have to what they needed to play, right? The second thing is that disc golf's a parallel sport. One of the emphases of Blue Power is not just people with special needs, but it's also their families as well. And I wanted to introduce an activity the whole family could enjoy. Now, a parallel sport is a sport where you play side by side against each other, but you're competing against the conditions, the course, the bowling alley, the dartboard. You're not competing against each other, which means everybody playing could actually play the sport on its own merit. The example I always give is if you were playing tennis with someone with special needs, a sibling, for example, well, they're being a great older brother, they're enjoying being out with their little brother with special needs, but they're not really playing the sport, and that makes it hard to do that. You have to be doing something very giving just to go out every single time, and that's difficult. A parallel sport, like if you play disc golf and you like disc golf, it doesn't matter if you're playing next to someone with special needs. They're still getting to play the sport you love. So I think that's a better thing. And the third, and this is just as important, is that disc golfers are the greatest people on earth. I believe this with all my heart. And when you bring out a family with someone with special needs to a disc golf course, what you're doing is you're introducing a family that's looking for a community where they can bring their child, where they don't have to worry about people making comments or staring. It's a very scary thing for a lot of families, the unpredictability, especially with autism, not knowing what to expect, at a grocery store or at Denny's. It's terrifying sometimes to go out in public with people who don't understand autism or your child. So what happens is these families get out to the disc golf course, you get introduced to the club, and then all of a sudden, hey, here's this club that knows little Timmy. We'll welcome little Timmy when he comes out. We'll welcome the family. You don't have to be embarrassed about if Timmy has a meltdown. Hey, Timmy has autism. Big deal. We know about autism. We understand why. And so it's an environment where they can actually go and feel safe. So between those three things, I think disc golf's the best thing in the world. So if I can, every time I bring one family out, if I leave and that family has now incorporated that into their life, their family's life is better because of it. So small numbers don't mean anything. In fact, I rarely had large numbers. I mean, a van full would be about as much as I ever had.
Well, one of the nice things about a lot of special needs communities is affecting one family quite quickly can spread to many others, because it's such a tight-knit community usually within specific areas. And I know for a fact in Wisconsin, my wife works with a lot of kids with special needs, and there isn't a place we go where if we see someone, they probably don't already know her, or she knows someone who knows someone, and it's a very tight-knit community. So,
and it's great, when somebody finds an activity, as you're getting at, when someone finds that activity and then shares it with the rest of the and says, hey, this is a great activity, it's kind of spreads like wildfire, and I think that's I totally understand how disc golf fits into that description for sure. Now,
absolutely.
So now, you had these Blue Power events, is what you were. I don't know if trademark's quite the word, but that's the branding that you were going on. Explain to everyone what that. Explain to everyone what that means now. I know you had a vision probably,
for sure.
and I'm guessing it somewhat has transitioned, in the last couple of years. But explain to everyone, if they went out to the website or search for Blue Power events, what that would mean.
Okay, so the 270 events I ran before were by the skin of my teeth. So I ran these events. Everybody got a disc and a shirt for entering, which I funded that myself. By the way, when I say myself, it was funded because I would run an event where people would come out. This is the 270, where they'd come out. They would pay, depending on the event, like say $20. They'd get a disc and a shirt for entering. The difference in the money, because a disc and a shirt didn't cost me $20, a portion of that went to my gas, I had to eat to be able to come to these events.
7 plates of food with Glenn Whitlock, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that only cost $5 though. So I had to fund these events. So basically, and then when a little bit could get donated here or there, but most of the money went to to fund being able to do these events. They were very small. I went into debt pretty good in 2.5 years. I never went hungry, but I was earning less than it took, and I was drawing from resources just to be able to pull this off. But so a year and 3 months ago, I started working full time, and I decided that I needed to not play disc golf for a year at least, and I needed to get out of debt. I needed to get solvent. Like I was feeling good. I'm happy. Depression's gone. But now I need to not be owing people money, especially people close to me. I'm not completely out of debt yet, but I'm trying. I'm close. And so that was where the focus was. But now that I'm doing better and we're not behind on bills, we're doing fine, I decided I wanted to run 10 PDGA tournaments in 2018, Blue Power events. Now, these are different. These are not, there's no fundraising component to this at all. These are traditional disc golf tournaments, 100% payback for pros and cash, 100% payback for AMs and prizes, trophies, CTPs, ace bowls, they're normal C-tier tournaments. If you want to come out and play disc golf, you can come play out disc golf. Nothing to do with Blue Power. It's a disc golf tournament. The Blue Power component, though, is that at every one of these events on Saturday, there's going to be a free class for kids and adults with special needs. So I'm going to still contact local agencies. I'm going to try to bring out a whole ton of people with special needs out to the event. I'm going to try to bring out media, put as much press on the local club and the local community, disc golf community as possible. So it's going to have both components to it. So traditional disc golf tournaments, Blue Power classes, and certainly do both. So these are going to be, my work's actually giving me a month leave of absence to do a handful of these events. So I'm going to be in Washington, Idaho, Oregon, Colorado, New Mexico, Nebraska, and on my Facebook page, all this. Well, actually, you go to discgolfscene.com. They're starting in June, or pdj.com, and they're listed in June, July. A couple events left to schedule in the fall.
Okay,
but,
so
and by the way, pre-register, please. That helps. That helps fund these events. That's how it works. So, you're welcome to register now.
Yeah, and nothing's changed in 20 some years. We're still.
Yeah.
We still want people to pre-register. It helps tournament directors. It helps fundraising efforts. It helps everyone. It helps organizers, planners, volunteers. It helps with all of those things. So I'm still on that pre-reg train. So that was one of the main questions that came in a couple different times is, are these PDGA sanctioned and to what level and so on and so forth? So I think you've just kind of answered all that. But recap so it's crystal clear for everyone.
Yeah. So basically, these 10 Blue Power events are traditional PDGA tournaments. If you took the Blue Power component out, these are just normal PDGA tournaments, normal payouts, normal side games. They're just tournaments.
Okay.
But in addition to that is the free special needs class every Saturday. So if, by the way, in any of these towns, if you know anybody with autism or Down syndrome or blind or paraplegic or CP, ADHD, PTSD, the kid or adult, the classes are 100% free. They'll always be free. Everybody that comes out with special needs gets a brand new Blue Power golf disc just for coming out and having the courage to give disc golf a try. And then I'll also, I teach these classes. I'll work one-on-one with every single person there. I'll work as a group. I'll work one-on-one. But you'll be a disc golfer when you leave, and bring the family out too, because everyone's invited. And
then these events are you personally the TD, or have you more or less partnered with other people that are TDs? And then the follow-up to that is, are these C tiers, B tiers?
No, these are all C tiers.
Okay.
I'm the tournament director, but with all my events, I rely on the club to help promote the event. I'll be looking for volunteers. We're doing some divisions on Saturday, some on Sunday, so hopefully volunteers come from both. They're not big events. I mean, if we have 60 people a day, that takes 1 or 2 people to run. For the special needs class, I need volunteers. But what I'm doing is, and I've always tried to do this, is I'm running the special needs class on the AM day, because I would like the top, and I'm always going to ask this, I want the top local pros to come out and help teach the class. I think that's important for players to see that the top guys in town are doing this. I mean, that's my own agenda of trying to kind of spread this, but I've never been told no by anybody. Everybody I've ever asked to help has helped. I mean, it's super fun too. It's not like you're just doing like volunteer work. I mean, it's really, really, really fun. People with special needs and their families, they're so cool. They're so much fun.
Now, the last go around, I know you had, at one point you had some of your own line of discs. You also then at another point had, and I think we talked about it even on the show here, you had collaborated with MVP a little bit, or in a major way.
Yep.
Where do you see, are you looking for partnerships? Have you secured those?
Yeah.
Where do you see yourself now with these companies?
Absolutely. So I'm so excited about this. I'm not working with MVP this year. MVP was great to me. I feel like I was very good to them. We had a great relationship for a couple years, but I think we just have different directions. I have I got a handful of sponsors looking for more, please, looking for sponsors. I'll promote the heck out of you in social media, and I'll sell your products at the events that I'll buy from you. Like, I want sponsors. The big one on board, the biggest one right now is Dynamic Discs.
Awesome.
I was utterly blown away by this, because I never really had much of a relationship with Dynamic Discs. I knew that they had this amazing business model. I went to some dynamic tournaments down in Texas. Oh, by the way, like, I'll give you an example of something Dynamic Discs did. When I got back on tour, I had no money. I mean, I came from this bad place where I was broke. And so I went to the tournaments, and I basically said, look, I'm trying to get on my feet. I need, help me out here. And there were some dynamic discs events in Texas where maybe someone knew me from back in the day that was running them that said, yeah, we'll pay your entry fee. We'll take it out of your prize money. I mean, it's little things like that they kind of stuck with me. Dynamic is a great company with they got the best business model in the sport, possibly. And I contacted them to sponsor the event and said, here's what I want. And they came back with about 4 times that amount.
Wow.
They didn't need to do that. They had all the promotional value they were going to get from me for what I asked for. They didn't need to give me a single product more than that. And they did. And they did it because they wanted to support what I'm doing, because they believe in what I'm doing with Blue Power. So blew my mind. I'm just, there's no words. I also reached out. The other one was Discmania. Discmania is now on as a bigger sponsor to the event. I'm the hugest fan of Simon. He's my son. Don't tell anybody. Cut this part out, but Simon's my son.
Well, we all know he has a very similar style, so to speak, of play that you did, and mentality and fun lovingness.
Yeah,
he's a showman at heart, much like you were.
I love Simon, Eagle, and all those guys. I mean, they're my favorite players on tour. But yeah, Discmania stepped up also. And I mean, I'm blown away by this, because I had no relationship with Discmania either. But they'd followed what I'm doing, and they wanted to support it without hesitation. We didn't negotiate. I said, here's what I'd like. And they're like, done. So I'll be carrying at these events tons of dynamic discs and products, tons of Discmania products. I'm going to be throwing dynamic discs and Discmania as well at the events, hopefully winning some Masters, C-tier titles. Yay. But I'll be definitely using their discs, because I so appreciate everything they're doing. So, and then like RPM discs out of New Zealand has stepped up, and there's a bunch of smaller companies as well, which I'll be posting about these, but the big sponsors get talked about on the podcast.
Well, and funny, when I think about it, you talk about these companies, you talk about Dynamics business model and what they do, and we love them to death, and we think they're amazing. You talk about them, and you talk about Discmania. 2 companies that I don't know if you realize this, they didn't exist in your heyday. They weren't. They weren't. They weren't big players in the game back when you were, finishing in the top few spots at Worlds.
To be fair, there were 4 major disc manufacturers when Scott stepped away.
Well, and that's kind of to my point.
I
count 2 major ones.
I counted Gateway and I counted Lightning, but I mean
2 major ones. Yes,
but you're right. There were really 2 major ones.
Yeah, there was basically that was it. So yeah, I came back, and it's blown up. I mean, that's so good for the sport. I mean, every new company is pumping money into the game. That's obviously huge. But yeah, I'm blown away by the support that I've gotten so far. I'm definitely open to more. And like I said, I can provide value. It's not altruism, sponsor these events. You're going to get tons of social media exposure, and I'll be buying and selling your products. So it's, like I said, it's very symbiotic. But reach out to me on Facebook, and I would love your support, and I'll support you back.
All right. Well, you say reach out on Facebook. I'll move to the next one.
Mm-hmm.
Which account on Facebook does you're taking a page out of my old playbook here, and before Facebook cracked down, there was Terry Miller, and then there was DG Guy, and it let me have both, and they would talk to each other all the time on Facebook, and I think I really, really confused a lot of people in my early days when DG Guy came into existence in 2010. I've seen the other Scott Stokely.
Yeah, that didn't last long.
Okay.
I thought it would be really fun to create a second identity on Facebook of someone who hated me.
Okay.
I was just I was basically procrastinating at work and trying to find reasons not to work during the day for little bursts. So yeah, I created another identity. Well, I started doing stand-up comedy. I'm still doing that. Well, I'm brand new at it, and I decided I wanted to create an account for this other Scott Stokely, but he was a jerk. So he'd call me fat and old, and basically, yeah. So I know I come up with a lot of ideas. Every single one of them I think is amazing. Yeah. They're not all.
Well, from what I've seen, I mean, now I hear you're doing stand-up. Are you also doing announcing for wrestling? Is that what I saw as well? Like, you seem to have your so much stuff. Like, I saw a picture, and I thought, go into that a little bit.
Well, basically, let's just say that I now own 51% of a company called Iron Hills Wrestling, Pro Wrestling, down in Pueblo, Colorado. And as the majority shareholder, I get to come in and basically do what I want and tell people what to do and decide who I fire and decide who's going to get pushed and who's going to get title shots. And basically everybody has to be nice to me because like they thought I was a nice guy coming in, but now that I have control.
So you're like the Dana White. You're like Dana White.
Are you going to be getting in the squared circle? Are you going to step in?
No, I have no intentions. This guy named Big Guns, Justin Andrews, he keeps trying to like challenge me to a match, but I'm a little too old for that. So I think I'll just have my henchmen take him out every week.
All right, fair enough.
So going back to your events briefly, what would you say? I know you have a call out for sponsorship and people to help, of course. And then volunteers on site. Ideally, they don't have to be the local pros, but that'd be great. What would you say are some of your biggest needs or wants? What's on your wish list for the people that do want to support you, and what will that support go towards?
Yeah. Okay. So first off, I don't, and this has been the case for the whole time I've been doing this. People have asked me, I don't send me money. I fund everything myself. If you want to make donations, if you have a business that wants to get behind something, my biggest advice is look for a local organization that could use your help. I got this under control. I can run the event. Everything I'm trying to do, I can fund. Local organizations are who need the money. Big organizations need the money too, but $300 doesn't do anything for a national organization. $300 for an assisted living center for adults with autism goes so far. So my thing is, if you're inspired by what I do, contact a local organization and see what you can do for them. If you want to teach a class for kids with special needs, you can contact me. I can give you what little advice I have. Most of the advice involves you can't prepare for it because every single kid's different. It's really about pulling the trigger and just doing it. Tell them that a week from Saturday you're running a class at 2:00. Tell them about it, and then show up at 2:00. See who comes. I mean, that's really that's the biggest thing. But that's really, if you want to support what I do, post about it in social media. Come out to the event, play the tournament. And another thing is, if you know anybody, and almost everybody does know somebody with special needs in their family, bring them out to the free class. They're going to get free stuff just for trying it. So that's probably the biggest thing, is just come out and support the event. And if you're inspired, do something locally. That's if I had my dithers, is that the right word?
So if you were, you're going to be focused on this, running all of these events, but then at the end of the day, as I think we've all learned all these years later, even disc golf's not paying a lot of the bills, or most bills for most people, present company included, solely paying the bills. When you go back to work, I see you post a lot that you love your job. I'm guessing you're pretty successful at it, but you love your job, and you guys are always interested in hiring more people to learn about what it is that you do, and then do it. Yeah. So give your company a plug here.
I will give my company a plug. We are okay. So it's really funny about this. I sell software. It's a sales job. But it's a sales job with a $30,000 base pay and commission that gives us 4 weeks vacation and sick time off paid, with 2.5 weeks of holidays and stuff. We wind up getting 6.5 weeks paid time off every year. They pay really well. There's video games and pool tables and in the break room. I mean, it's a modern software company. They are so good to us. And I post about how much I like my job and that we're hiring so much that people, like, I see posts where they're saying it's an MLM or some network marketing thing, and because that's what usually happens. Someone gets involved in Amway or something, they're like, "Oh, Amway is great, right?"
Yeah.
No, it's a job selling software. It's just a modern company. There's offices in Massachusetts and Colorado. there's like 1,500 employees. I mean, it's $1 billion company. And if you contact me, if you're looking for a job, they want you to have a college degree or a couple years sales experience. Although if they like the right person, they'll waive those. But that's, it's a white collar job, and it's just a modern, cool company. And I'm trying to fill the office full of disc golfers. There's a bunch of disc golfers. There's baskets in the office, right? It's really cool. So if you're looking for work, contact me. They'll hire remotely and bring you out. The last person I got was a girl from Dallas that I got hired, a disc golfer, who they hired over Skype, and then she moved to Colorado. Yeah.
So rewinding, I'll say 2, 5, 10, or even 20 years ago, any one of those intervals, would you see yourself at a software sales company doing what you're doing? Would you have pictured yourself in that role?
When I took my 13 years off, I did basically online marketing for online businesses. So I have experience in it because the company does email marketing, right? So that's kind of what I did. I didn't expect myself to be working for a company. When I got my tattoos on my knuckles, the person is in North Carolina had to read a disclaimer that said, basically, your life will change. You're not going to be able to get a job. And I was like, well, I'm going to be on tour the rest of my life, so what do I care? I got lucky with this company. If I knew that I was going to be looking for like full-time work in Colorado, I probably wouldn't have done that. But I lucked into a company that's the last thing they care about. So no, I didn't expect to be doing this, but I never thought I could be this happy at a company. I never thought I could be surrounded by so many amazing people. It's the culture of the company is like it's a modern company. Like it's basically let's hire a bunch of people that like each other, who are really, really cool, who aren't negative. Management doesn't yell. Everybody gets Nerf guns when they're hired. It's just now you're expected to kick ass because it's a big software company. Like you have to do a good job, but they treat you so well that you have a good time doing it.
Well, real quick break for SD Disker, who I think was earlier saying they know you and wanted to send a shout out. I'd have to scroll up to see the name. And then Ryan Pilcher, thank you as well for the super chat to the two of them. Thank you guys so much. We appreciate it. So there's always a lot of conversation that goes round and round about your time off. And you worked with some email marketing, so on and so forth. Is there anything that you'd like to address or clarify or denounce or not, or any conversation there that's appropriate?
Okay, so I'm going to tell a story. I've never told this publicly before.
Wow. Smashbox exclusive, we call those.
Yes. This was my plan of by this. I'm going to, I shouldn't even say this, but I'm going to. So my plan all along was that I thought when I quit the sport, my plan was to go to my final tournament, and then right before the final 9, I wanted to put on a dress, do my makeup, and I wanted to play the final 9 in full drag, and then just disappear from the sport. I did, and I because it would have just been so funny because just people would have been talking about it. It would have been, I don't know, it would have been hilarious to me. And I'm so ashamed of the fact that I didn't have the guts to do it because I really wanted to do this. But when I left, when people started telling all these wonderful rumors about what I was doing, I just let them go. I thought they were fun. The short of it is I did online marketing. I created a lot of my own businesses. I did sporting goods stores. I delved into some more risque areas, but not all the way into the risque areas. I did marketing for businesses that were kind of in that area. The biggest site I did was a sexual health and education website. There was no graphic nudity on the site. It dealt with adult subject matter, but it wasn't like an adult website. But that became, she's doing this and this and that. I just thought it was hilarious. I just let it go. Okay. So I just, well, nothing. I didn't do anything I'm ashamed of. I can tell you that. I had a good time.
I don't know if that really means
there are different levels for different people, and
well, so to put it all out there, for those who don't know, the very much the rumor, the conversation that went around was that you were heavily involved in the adult film industry, and that was kind of what circled around, and it has even been talked about on the chat board tonight.
Yeah.
As
I was okay. First off, I was extremely flattered that people thought I could have done this. No, actually, so here's the funny story. If we're gonna go there, the funny story is that everybody was like, well, we'll use the words. They said, "I heard Scott Stokely's doing porn." That's what the rumor was. I thought that was hilarious.
That's what I told everybody.
Yeah, which I thought was funny. And then so at one point, I went on the PDJ board. I'm probably still up there. I went on the PDJ board to read a thread after I'd been gone a few years. I checked back, and then somebody posted. They said, "Oh no, I heard he's doing gay porn." That was the post, right? And I remember the moment I said, I go, well, no one's heard from me in years, but I need to like squash this rumor right away, right? So I get on there and I start typing, and midway through posting about it, I went, what am I doing? This is absolutely hilarious. Okay, delete, let that one, because that was the closest I came to letting people have these weird rumors about me. Sorry to disappoint you guys. You know, I did marketing for a lot of different industries, but that was mostly the extent of it. So
okay, well,
sorry, it wasn't as exciting as they wanted to see. Sorry if I let you down.
Well, and it's funny because fair or not, and I'd love to your legacy and history all be related to special needs and helping out with these Blue Power events. That's what I want your legacy to continue to evolve into. But if you're old school or remotely old school, the alternative story. Alternative facts, I think we've called them in the past. Those are the ones that seem to pop up first, and I think you're rewriting that history, and it's good to have it out there. I think for everyone to hear and see.
I think it's all fun. I like to think that I hope when I die, I will have led the most interesting life of anybody I know. You know, I don't want to have been boring. So I think so far that's kind of been my goal, and I'm pretty confident that I've done a pretty good job of it. And by the way, the funny thing about this is because of my history and my life, I'm definitely not for everybody, and I've had to accept that. When I first started to get out on social media, like I couldn't believe that people didn't like me, and then I came to realize that I don't think any of those people met me in person. I just have different beliefs than them, or were into different things than them, and so they didn't like me because I wasn't like them, and I kind of just had to accept that. I mean, now I'm numb to it, right? It's fine. But at first it was hard. It wasn't that easy to realize people who didn't know me didn't like me. It was kind of sad.
Just do some commentating, then you'll get all sorts of haters.
Well, and I was going to say, maybe that is one of the things that we've seen develop over the past 10, 15 years with social media is a lot more clicks in the sport. Like, we're all still one big family, but now there's some family in the kitchen, there's some family in the living room, and it is a little bit more than I think it was back in your Terry's the heyday of when we were playing quite more often. So, but ultimately, you get that with the growth of the sport.
It is. Well, and the thing for me personally is that I've also had to accept is that, well, aside from the fact that everybody's entitled to their opinion, is that some of the opinions aren't founded. I mean, when I had a period of 4 years ago, like I said, I had a period of about 8 months where I was using drugs. If people don't still want to attach me to the fact that I wasn't the best person then, that's their right to do so. Like, I can't control if they decide, well, that guy we can't trust that guy because this is what he did back then. They have every right to do that and have every right to not come out to the events and not, that's perfectly okay. That's like a personal thing I've had to learn. Like, I made my bed. I mean, those things, I did those things. It's not something that was done to me. And so, I made my bed. And so, but I do hope, like you said, that every single thing I've done since then, I'm hoping is overshadowing some of this because I would like people to like me and I want them to support what I do. But ultimately, they're not all going to. So.
Just to clarify, Slate is SD Disker, so Slate says hi with a unique name like that. I'm guessing you recognize or remember Slate. So Slate says hi out on the board. All right.
Well, hello, Slate.
So a few of the and you were It was very endearing how you were, well, thank you. You were so excited about being on our show. We were obviously excited to have you. You also put in more effort than most of our other guests. You went out there and were prompting people for questions, and you were promoting it a few days ahead. We usually don't even give our guest a few days head notice. We're like, oh yeah, it's Monday. Hey, should you join us? So for all of that, we appreciate it. There was a few questions that came in where that came in off the board. I see some that were posted specifically to your wall. And, people continue to interact with us. So if there's any really good questions, we massage those and take those off the board as well on the YouTube chat. But Rob Lee, who I know is out of Wisconsin, super nice guy, he had asked about, and I think this is very appropriate, and it's even being generic. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What do you see yourself doing?
Oh, I got this.
Yeah.
Okay. I've got very firm plans. Which are almost certainly going to change.
Yeah.
Okay, so the whole idea of me being back in Colorado, I was away from my daughter for a period of time, and I'm totally comfortable with why I did it and what I need to do for me. But as soon as I was able to, I came back, and that's why I'm here, because she was finishing her last year of school.
She's coming to Wisconsin now, correct?
She'll be in Appleton, Wisconsin, studying physics.
Where Terry and I grew up, Appleton. That's right.
At Lawrence University.
Yep.
I couldn't be more proud. She's a nerd like me. But in the process, I met a woman. She doesn't like to be in the limelight, so I won't talk about her too much. But her and her two sons are now here living with me in Colorado. And so the plan was that we were going to be in Colorado until my daughter went to college, which is at the end of the semester. Her son's a year younger, so we're going to be here for one more year. So I'm going to be here until June of next year. My plan, if everything goes according to plan, is that a year from June, we are going to go on the road, and then I'm going to die on tour in 30 years. I never want to have a fixed home again. I am happier on the road than I am anywhere else. So one of the ideas for these events, like these events I'm running this year, my goal is for them to pay for themselves. I want them to pay for me to be able to travel to go to the events. I'm pretty sure that, you sell merchandise. I'm pretty sure they're going to be sustaining. But that's the business model, that if everything goes according to plan, come next year, I want to start running, maybe 30 PDGA tournaments a year around the country, traveling. I want to do them bigger and better with a bigger vehicle. And I have no intention of stopping. I would like to die on the road. I think that's where I belong. So yeah, I have very firm plans. Oh, and by the way, every one of the events will have a Blue Power component to them. I will never, for the rest of my life, I'll put it in verbal writing, if that's such a thing. I will never run an event that doesn't have a class for kids with special needs ever. So that's always going to be a component. But the events I run will basically be for-profit events, because I want to make a living doing it.
Okay. Well, now I understand you want to get.
Wait.
Go ahead.
Wait, I'm sorry. Wow, I left out the most important part. My intention is to spend half the year in the Southern Hemisphere too. That way I never have to go through another winter for the rest of my life. I want to work with RPM Discs in New Zealand, and I want to run events all around New Zealand and Australia. And I want to spend a lot of time doing what I do down there. So hopefully I'll be in New Zealand half the time, and then in the US half the time. If everything goes according to plan, that's the goal.
Okay. And then I guess that may or may not cut off my next question, which was, as you're building this model and trying to get to these 20, 30 events and being on the tour, do you see yourself supplementing that? Will you be able to still, for instance, work with the software company from the road and supplement your income, or do you plan to be fully disc golf?
Yeah, I think fully disc golf. I don't know how it would work. I've actually talked to my company about doing this and working remotely, and there's logistical challenges to doing so. It kind of needs to be under the same roof. So I don't know where that's going to go, but I'm not sure. I just signed with an agent to start doing public speaking. I want to share my story. I think I have something interesting to say. Turns out I'm the top sales rep at a $1 billion software company. So I guess I'm good at sales and marketing too. And so I wanted to speak on that. So along with the disc golf, I want to do public speaking as well. But that's kind of a hit or miss, right? The disc golf is something I know I can do consistently. But that's my plan. I want to just go on the road, and that's it. I don't ever want a home again. I mean, I'll have a home on wheels. But that's what I want to do
Now,
forever.
what are you taking away from, or what are you seeing in terms of our current day professionals? I mean, and I'll give you a few examples. Nate Sexton is on the road with his wife and his newborn. You know, Paul McBeth now has gotten essentially off the full-time touring road to fly in and out of events. You see, you know, a Wysocki in a van, Paige Pierce in a van, Joe Revere, you know, has a van but only goes out on little spurts because of his family and his full-time job. What do you think of the overall landscape that we have right now with our players?
I think it's brilliant. I love the guys on tour. There's not one of them I don't like. When I was traveling around, the vast majority of them were so good to me. They were so respectful of my place in the sport, even if they didn't know who I was until I came back. You know, people like Nate Sexton, by the way. I'll tell you a funny story. So when I met Nate Sexton, well, I thought it was for the first time, but I was in Athens, Georgia. And Nate Sexton walks up to me just like 2 years ago, and he says, "Scott, I've been waiting 13 years to shake your hand." And I went, "Wow, that's pretty cool." And he says, "No," he goes, "You don't understand." He said, "I had been playing disc golf for 2 weeks. I lived in Corvallis, Oregon. I didn't know anybody who played. I saw a poster for one of your clinics up at the course. I came there. I sat in the front row. I was 15 years old. I didn't know anything about disc golf, but you taught me the X step and you taught me how to throw sidearm. I just want to shake your hand." And I'm like, you know, that's kind of like all teary-eyed. And then I remind him of it every chance I get. But like, I have so much respect for the guys out on tour, and the sport's like every year is better than it was the year before. This sport is like, this is what I dream. Well, I dream of it being even bigger, but this is what we thought was going to happen in 1985, and it didn't happen in 1986. But we were sure in 1987 it was going to happen. But this sport is on the most solid ground. Like it's not going anywhere. It's not a fad. There's real athletes playing the sport. Lots of really good athletes. And the women's division is starting to blow up. The women's division is right where the men's division was just a number of years before. But it's progressing also. Like, I think it's kind of a long-winded answer, maybe not even what you asked.
No,
but,
it is. And I guess my follow-up, though, is along those lines, what do you think about our new support mechanisms, or the companies that have come along that are actually taking us a little bit more seriously? I throw a Keen into there, a little while, a Solomon, Adidas, of course, has had the relationship now with Paul and Innova. They've come along, and then this Grip 6, who from the belt industry is Tempercraft. Some of these companies that are truly outside disc golf are now looking at us, and whether it's the Pro Tour, who I think is doing a ton of great work along those lines, or the National Tour, or everyone in between. What about the outsiders? I mean, is it fair to say you've always thought as well, like, yeah, disc golf companies are great, but we need outside money? Is that something you've always thought or believed in as well?
Well, it's always important. It always had to do simply with how many eyes are on the sport. I remember hearing about this like way back in like 80 something or 90 something. When I was trying to, like, we were kids, but we were like, why aren't all these companies sponsoring us? And someone explained to us, this is what I was told. They said, you ever look at like skiing on TV, and all the skiers have all these different patches on their jackets for different sponsors? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, you know why they do that? He says, because they're paid like $13 for every second the company's logo's on TV. He goes, it's just math. It's just numbers. How many eyes are on your product? It's worth X amount of dollars or cents, more like cents, for every eye that's on your product for a certain amount of time. So if there's no eyes on the product, you can't get outside sponsorship. So I think what's happening is just there's volume. And when there's numbers, it's just math. And so the more people that play, the more eyes on the product. We're in front of a larger audience. Larger and larger companies are going to come in because those views are worth something. I think it's brilliant. I mean, all the competition of all the disc companies, the best thing that could ever have happened to the sport, right? The competition breeds everything good, just about. And so, yeah, it's like every year's better. I don't know. I mean, I'm speechless. When I left and came back, I could not believe like how professional tournaments were, and how, I mean, it's I mean, it was amazing in the 90s, but it's at a whole new level now. And in 20 years, we're going to look back and go, oh my God, remember the sport in its infancy in 2018?
Yeah.
Like in 100 years, this is still the genesis of the sport. We're still babies right now compared to how I believe we're going to be, for sure.
So I'll follow that up with maybe not as optimistic. I'll say, what has surprised you that hasn't changed? Maybe from a negative perspective. Is there anything you're like, oh, that's still a thing, or that's still happening, or oh gosh, we didn't grow out of that? Is there anything that jumps out at you in that way?
I can't think of a thing where the sport's gotten worse. I really can't. The only thing that's maybe dropped off is the family aspect of the camaraderie is smaller in some ways, just because the sport's bigger now. But disc golfers are still the best people in the world. I mean, we're still fringe. We still welcome people from all sorts of demographics. There's still an acceptance of all different cultures. You know, you go out to league night, you get the same old, you know, you got the people partying right next to the attorney, and they're getting along just fine sharing disc golf. I mean, there's still that bond. I can't think of any way the sport's worse. I mean, the sport's better off than it's ever been. It really is.
Okay. What do you see as next? And I know that's a really broad stroke to ask you to paint, but yeah, what do you see as next, or you know, in an ideal world, what would be that next big thing for you, to see it happen or unfold, yeah, or take place for the sport?
I think the sport is going to continue to grow at the rate it's growing. I've always thought the thing that the sport had going for us was just math. You know, every single person that plays typically enjoys the sport, introduces an average number of people to it, and plays a certain amount of time before dropping out, but maybe forever. And that's kind of like how things spread virally, right? More people are introduced to the sport than people who decide they don't like the sport anymore, at a rate of about, 12%, 15% a year. The most astounding thing is, according to almost all metrics, the sport has grown by 15% a year pretty consistently for like 40 years straight. That's ridiculous. I mean, you can have something like beach volleyball. They get Corona sponsors that they're on ESPN. It blows up, and then it levels off, right? Disc golf hasn't done that. It has been this, right? I mean, whatever it is, 12.5%, whatever. But it's been steady, and the reason why I believe it's steady is it's simply the mathematics. You know, X amount of players will go back to their hometown and install a course. It's just math. But it's not changing. It's not going away. I mean, it's everything I could have hoped it could. You know, I feel like I played a very small part in the sport becoming what it was. Like back in the 90s, I went to 155 cities, did 155 throwing clinics. There was only 800 courses in the world at this point. I went to 155 of them in a year and a half, did a throwing clinic, which was the only instruction in the sport back then, where everybody came out from all the courses around to like learn how to throw backhand, learn how to grip a sidearm. I feel like I planted seeds. Like I played a part of this, you know, a small part. I mean, Innova, Discraft, and the PDGA, bar none, did the most. All the TDs did their part, all the clubs, but I played a part. And so I feel very proud of being able to be a part of this thing, you know. Whatever part I played, it was a part.
Well, I think we're guilty as anybody to living in the moment. We don't get a lot of our, I'll say the term founders, but the people who, like you said, planted the seed. But you're right in that, I mean, look at your story with Nate Sexton when he was 15. Terry and I, from when we were in our, teens, our 18, 19, 20, going to your clinics, because back then you either bought a DVD with your name, with your face on it, or you went to a clinic. Other than that, all that information about throwing and things was passed down by word of mouth or meeting some crazy old guy at the course who met somebody else. It's not like it is now where you can sit in your basement and learn perfect form off of YouTube. There's a 1,000 different ways to learn that. So you're right. I think that you and amongst other people, like for us, it was Barry or Kenny or Greenwell. Just, they were the people that planted the seeds that we are now seeing take fruit.
Yeah, it's been.
Mike, I was saying, well, in my generation, which started in the 80s, is really the second generation.
Mm-hmm.
The sport was born in the 70s. And the generation of players that founded it, which was the extreme hippie generation, the Rose Bowl days, those are the actual pioneers of the sport. So I got to capitalize on the foundation laid by somebody else. So I mean, I wasn't like one of the founders by any stretch. I mean, I started about 7 years after the course started, the first course went in. But, you know, I was at the World's, I grew up at the world's first course, so I got to hang out with those guys. You know, I was taught by the people that created the sport, you know, so yeah, I mean, being part of the history, I mean, I honestly, if I could go back in time, I would never trade places. Like, well, I could have, had more prize money in the 90s. I wouldn't have traded the experience of being there at the beginning for anything, you know, like, and if we ever do a podcast, we could do a whole podcast on the history of the sport. It was weird back then. Like, people would just be shocked. Like, if they heard like what would happen at tournaments back then, and like it was, but it was so cool too. It was just so weird and so fun and so cool. I wouldn't trade that for a couple $1,000s in prize money. Not, you know, not for all the couple $1,000s in the world.
Wow, we hear you. Well, and as many of us said on the board, so many people, Seth Steinway, holy cow.
Thanks, Seth. That's a very big donation.
Appreciate it, Seth. As so many have said on the board, this has been one of the most enlightening interviews they've heard. And obviously you're a testament to just the depth and the wealth of knowledge and your willingness to share anything and everything with us. So we appreciate it. Clearly, I think we can all agree, everyone on the board, everyone listening days or weeks later or years later knows that we could continue to talk probably for the next 8 hours and have things to talk about. So that's just really a good tease to have you on more and more often. And
I would love to come on, you know, with, you know, no agenda. I mean, I'm on with an agenda today.
Sure.
I want people to come to my events, but I would love to come on and just talk about some
of the great stories that you have and have seen.
The most interesting people in the world. Yeah, I was there for so many of these things, and not all of them, but I was there for a lot of them. And like I said, we could do a whole podcast, and that would just be completely light and funny. Like, there's nothing serious about it. It was just like, and by the way, we're going to upset some people because a lot of people don't want to believe that this is the way the sport was. But the people in the early days of the sport, I have so much respect and love for. And I don't want to cover over the fact that the sport was what it was back then. It's better now than ever. But that doesn't mean it was not awesome back then. It was just, it was different.
There's a reason, you know, his nickname is Crazy John Brooks.
Yes.
You know, he's a book of itself.
I can fill an hour of Crazy John stories. So
you may need to remind him of some of his stories, even too, being crazy.
I'll start jotting down notes.
Yeah, please do. We'll definitely catch up.
So Scott, with that, we're going to let you go. We're super excited to learn everything we did, not just about the history, but of course about what's going on present day, about your Blue Power events, about the component that's tied in there, about your sanctioned events that you have coming up this year, and then even the bigger scoping, more broader plan, you know, for years to come. So we're excited to hear about that. We're excited for our entire, listener group to all know what's going on and be in the know on that. And as we said, it's just it's an obvious no-brainer that we have you and check in with you a little bit more frequently and get some updates onto what's going on there. But then also take an occasional trip down memory lane and learn more about the history and the past. It was Jim Oates who one time gave me a really hard time a couple years ago at Masters Cup and said, yeah, your show's great and all. Maybe you should get someone over the age of 30 to be on it.
Other than the hosts.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
by the way, just so you know, I have a great Jim Oates story. So
I'm sure you.
We're just gonna I'm basically gonna go through some of the older magazines and just take a list of names and be like, all right, Scott, we need one story about Jim Oates. Yep. We need one Greenwell. We need one Brooks. We need one Kenny. So
Yeah,
we'll get you.
I could, and I'll make sure I'll try to run those by.
No.
That's no fun.
We don't
No,
like to
just-
do that.
just
We're
to
good.
share.
We call them exclusives for a reason.
Don't run them by any of those guys.
The next time I'm on, it's going to be some really juicy gossip, except for the ones I don't tell.
That's right.
All right, Scott, we appreciate it. Thank you for joining
Thanks
us.
you guys so much. Thanks for having me. Hey, and last thing, so come out, Disc Golf Scene and PDJ.com. The events that are scheduled are all in June and July of this year. Excuse me. But there's going to be, I believe, 3 more scheduled this fall, which I'll probably have finalized this week. But the rest are all in June and July, and pre-register and just come out and have a good time, and that's it.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Keep
Thanks,
up the
guys,
great work.
so much.
Very inspiring, and we're excited to help promote and do whatever we can to keep you going. And thank you so much for all the insights. Have a good night.
Thanks, guys.
Good night, Scott.
Good night.
All righty. Scott Stokely.
What a character. What a wonderful. I mean, there are so many Scott Stokely stories, but on top of that, there are so many stories Scott has to share.
Yes.
And he's a wealth of knowledge. I saw people on the board saying, hey, Scott, for commentating, he would be a great color commentator, I
Yes.
think. He has a lot of the history, the knowledge of the sport. So who knows what's going to happen in the future? Maybe when he hits the road full time, we can work on
We'll
something.
wrangle him in. He would be, I think of that, like, again, this is a little old school, but I think of John Houck, and I think it was Stork. John Houck and Stork did some commentary on some Worlds videos in the 90s, and John Houck's not tall. Stork is. Maybe we could be the slightly updated version. Myself and Scott Stokely could be the new Houck and Stork. By no means do I know what John Houck knows, but maybe we could be that new slightly updated version. I don't know, maybe not. So either way, of course, thank you so much, Scott Stokely, for joining us. Please go out there. Johnny, I saw you had the website earlier up. If people want to check it out,
I saw the Blue Power. You can go to Google and do a Blue Power website, but it looks like it's like bluepower.discgolf.io, but it didn't look like it was updated. So I think I'm wondering if maybe he's moved towards Disc Golf Scene and maybe more disc golf centric or specific websites.
Or the Facebooks or whatever.
Facebook. So check him out. Follow him on Facebook. Look at the PDGA. Go to Disc Golf Scene, as he said, and we'll make sure to have all that out there.
Okay. Well, so again, thank you, Scott Stokely. And I think we of course, that one, who knows how long that was going to go, but I think we're going to also have another guest here in a little while. We're going to try and get him dialed up. I know that interview, well, again, I didn't know where it was going to go in terms of length, but we're super excited that he could share so much with you. We'd like to get back into kind of one of the topics that perked up everyone's ears a little while ago regarding the video coverage that took place in Arkansas. And one of the things that jumped out at me when seeing the post regarding Johnny McRae, or specifically Jen McRae, his wife / caddy at this event, had said to Will Jenkins, who was filming, said, I think it was after their 6th hole, she stated to him, hey, could you please no longer film Johnny? And from that point forward, Will said he didn't do any more filming. And then obviously none of his shots were then ultimately put into that final round. And then that just started so many more questions, just like you guys on the board. It just raises so many questions, legal and otherwise, and lots of different things, procedures, all those types of things. And we figured there was no better person to pin down and expect every single answer out of the world of media than none other than Steve Hill from the PDGA. Steve.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Great. How you doing?
I'm doing well, but man, thanks for having me on right after Scott.
Easy follow-up, bro. Easy.
I think in show business they say never follow kids and animals, but
he's a little bit of both.
He is. He is a big kid and quite an animal. So I'm sorry, Steve.
No, thank you guys for having me on. Fantastic interview with Scott. I don't expect anyone to be super excited about this segment now, but Scott's great, man. That was a phenomenal interview. I had a blast listening to it.
He's always so entertaining, and just so everyone, as if you wouldn't imagine, or if you didn't imagine it, everything we got out of Scott just now is exactly what you could get out of him if you ran into him at the McDonald's in the morning before the tournament starts and you wanted to get a sandwich. Like, Scott would give you that exact same persona, that exact same enthusiasm.
He would. Honesty.
Honesty. That's just Scott through and through, which is awesome. So, But this segment, I think, again, we want it to be a learning measure. We want to learn things. I think everybody else wants to learn things. This is a really interesting crossroad in disc golf media, and this is probably the highest profile example of it. And so that's why I think a lot of people should be interested in this. Do you want to give your synopsis or what you've heard? I think directly as well from Will.
Yeah, I mean, I think you narrowed it down. It was a learning experience for me and everyone at the PDGA as well. I mean, it's something we haven't really seen a situation like this before, where, I mean, players, like with the new coverage policy this year for feature cards and everything, players can opt out in advance if they want to.
Let me clarify that real quickly. They can opt out of being part of a featured card. Is that?
Yes.
Not necessarily opt out of saying I don't want to be filmed, but they could opt out of saying
the card completely.
Yeah, out of the card completely. Can you clarify that right off the bat?
Yeah. I mean, it's and that just covers first rounds, though. You know what I mean?
Correct.
Like, we don't have a policy in place for subsequent rounds. We don't have a policy in place that says, lead card. Sure, you can play on the lead card, but if you're having a rough round, we're going to edit you out. It was just a totally new situation. So I think that was the biggest thing I took from all this. I talked to Will a little bit yesterday, and the biggest thing I got from him was that, number one, he was like, I guess actually, let me circle back. Like, if we're talking about just actual policies, like the one thing that we can find in the competition manual that would cover this, it's 3.06 tour player media and sponsor relations in the competition manual for anyone who wants to really bust that out and read along with me. It says all participants agree that the PDGA and its agents may publish photographs and image of their participation at PDGA sanctioned events. This obviously was a PDGA sanctioned event, so you would think that would fall under it, but where the gray area comes in is that and its agents part. Mm-hmm. Basically, what Will told me was his capacity there is he's been on tour and traveling around to different events, and a lot of times he's caddying for Eric Oakley when he's done playing. Eric was on this lead card along with Joel Frabin, who ended up winning it, Johnny, and Nick Wood. And so part of that is, Will Jenkins has been filming Eric as a way to put him on video more and boost his profile and everything. And so he wasn't like hired by the tournament. So it's a little bit tricky in that the part where it says and its agents, he was approved by the tournament. Like, I guess he went up to the assistant TD the day of and just said, hey, I'm going to film these guys. He also got permission. He asked Joel and Johnny and Eric, obviously Eric and Nick, if they were fine with being on video, and they were all cool with it. But then it just turns out that, first of all, I don't know how much you guys watched that, but the weather was atrocious.
I had heard that. I didn't see anything, but I had heard the weather was bad.
It was really windy and cold. I mean, nothing like you guys have to handle up there. So the weather was it, and then I don't know. I saw Johnny said there were some other distractions. I know that he did not say that the videographer was a distraction, and Will himself said that everything went down in a very courteous way. But that basically part of the way through the round, Johnny's wife Jennifer requested that he no longer be filmed, and then he obliged. And then afterwards, they asked him to edit out the rest of the coverage, and he also obliged, which I give Will a lot of credit for even doing that, because that's, I mean, I don't know, from an editing standpoint, Terry, like, if you had to do that, does that mess up your workflow?
In some ways, funny enough, it makes it easier. Because in theory, you're assuming he's shooting roughly the same amount of strokes. That's in theory 25% less editing you'll have to do. And I had asked him as well. I said, when were you asked to no longer film? And he said, I believe it was after the 6th hole. So he had filmed up until the 6th hole, and then she being Jennifer, had later clarified and said, yeah, if you could please just not put any of it in there. So when he sat down and decided he was going to oblige, he knew right from the get-go that, hey, I'm not going to put in even, that the first 1/3 of his shots.
Yeah.
It mentally might mess with your workflow a little bit, depending on the editor that you are. But I think one of his biggest challenges, which he handled again very, very admirably and professionally, one of his biggest challenges was relaying the situation and not trying to paint any kind of negative overtone to it. And I give him
100%.
credit, and I give him credit, but also credit's due in that he very much clarified with, I think, all of us that Johnny nor Jen were negative toward him, and it was very amicable, but that it was still an interesting situation. So that's where we're at.
That's kind of what it boils down to, I think. In the short term and relating to this situation, I think it's a no harm, no foul kind of situation where there really wasn't anything clearly painted or clearly laid out, because Will was kind of doing this of his own volition. He wasn't hired. He asked the guys in kind of a last minute capacity. I'm sure if this were a Jomez or Central Coast and they'd been there the whole tournament covering every card and Johnny knew about it, I doubt he would even ask. I know Ian.
But what if he did?
Central Coast. Well, I don't know. I think in this regard, if it were something like that, that would fall under the competition manual of, and its agents. Because generally, Jomez, Central Coast, you guys are going to be there in a hired capacity. So I think that changes the calculus a little bit. And in that case, then we're talking about, okay, does he ask that? Do they oblige? I asked Ian. I know he said he wouldn't if something like that happened. I haven't asked you yet. What would you do in that situation?
It's interesting, and I'll also say this. And I said this to Will. Will was there in a volunteer capacity.
Right.
He was filming, as he said, in a volunteer capacity, originally with kind of the intent, more focus on Eric originally, and then this was for the whole card. But then Will, in this sense, was also acting as an active caddy to Eric Oakley. And when you're a caddy, you're technically an extension of a player in a lot of regards, or you can be. And does that muddy the water? Let me follow it up and say, what if Johnny V just came in off the street to this tournament, showed up with his camera, and was doing everything, legit and by the book, but just showed up off the street and decided to start following these guys? Could Johnny or anyone turn to Johnny V in that case, again, as a volunteer who has no other ties, and say to him, hey, quit filming me, and I don't want to be on your whatever video you put out? I mean, Will was not far from just that, being a volunteer.
But you
for sure
bypassed his question.
I know.
You totally did, Terry.
Would
I bring it up?
If you were there, and does it depend on the tier of the event? If you're covering a B tier event that Johnny happens to be at, does it make a difference?
You're there getting paid, Terry.
Yeah.
What do you do?
If I'm there getting paid, I feel like it depends on who's paying me. Is the PDGA paying me? Is Johnny's sponsor paying me? Is Discraft? Is Innova? Who's paying me? Is the TD himself or herself paying me? If I'm there getting paid,
not Johnny is paying you. How about that?
If I'm there getting paid, I feel like I have to play by every rule as a good videographer, and I have to record every shot, have an awkward conversation later, and then likely I have to insert every shot.
Yeah.
Now, let me be very clear. I said this to Will, there's been times that I'm recording people that I don't like. I can think of a lot of people I may not like, and they may say something to me, and I may think, what if I just didn't include your video? Who would get mad at me? Would the TD get mad at me? Would that player?
Yeah.
Would that player sponsor? What if I'm doing it on my own? And again, that whole paid element is certainly, if I showed up to the A tier in Illinois this weekend and I go film the last round, and there's a guy on there I just simply don't like, is it my obligation to put him in the video?
I mean, if you're volunteering, probably not.
Okay. I mean, so, and Will was a volunteer, and again, that whole paid component and who's paying you,
Yeah.
it's iffy. But
But I think really what this whole situation has brought up is that clearly it's something we have to work on and integrate into a media policy. Because I mean, I think everyone we were fortunate in that everyone handled this situation as professionally as possible. It sounds like Will handled it great, Johnny and Jennifer handled it great. Um, I you know so I but what this does do is it brings to our attention that okay, maybe we do need to have, as we get more media teams and as the sport becomes more visible, maybe we need to have a clearer um, policy. I know a lot of tournaments when you sign up for them will have the fine print of, you might be on camera, things like that. I don't know what went into the signing up for the Vintage Open, and if they said anything like that, I'm doubting it, just because they weren't hiring a Jomez or Central Coast or you or fill in the blanks on another more known team. But then I think the other thing about this is, number one, if it's a more established channel, I don't think Johnny would have actually asked out of it. I really don't. Just knowing him, I've seen him. We've seen him get filmed before. He's had rough rounds. He's gone through it. He's done it. And then the second part of that, which, um, and we can say this as more people watching the sport and fans, I guess. But even the tournament director said this, like, if Johnny has the hot round, we're not talking about this. So it's part of that also comes down to where does the performance aspect come in there too? And I'm not knocking Johnny. It looks like it was a brutal day. I mean, him, Oakley, and Wood all actually shot the same score on that card. Only Joel Freeman was able to really smash it. So there's a few different factors in there, but I think on the whole, everyone handled it well, and it was a funky little gray area. And going forward, it's something that we do have to probably lay out something more clearly about.
Well, a couple things about Johnny for those that I could see Johnny in an event like this, seeing a cameraman, and even before the first hole, asking, knowing Johnny's relationship with some media, just because I know he can be easily distracted. And I think he feels that anything outside of golf is a distraction, whether it's a cameraman, whether it's a mouthy caddy, whether it's whatever.
Kids following along.
Yeah,
with the
kids,
card,
pets, things like that. I think Johnny can be easily distracted at times. And here's not a suggestion. Here's a tip for any would-be videographers: stay behind him. Period.
Right. Yeah.
For Johnny, there are some players like Macbeth and Ricky. I could be standing 6 inches from the basket, and it's not going to affect them.
Doing jumping jacks.
Yeah, doing jumping jacks. With Johnny, I learned
I would pay to see that
very quickly. You just film him from behind. Yep. Whenever he's putting, whenever he's throwing, never going from. I went in front of him one time at Worlds, and it was hole 18, and I asked. There was a backup at when we was it Jackson? Was that the last round? No, Jackson was the second round.
Oh no,
at the Armory.
Was this round 2 or round 4?
I think this was round 4. I think it was the final hole, and he was in good spirits, and
he was in a great mood.
There was a backup, and so I gingerly was like, Johnny, can I stand like 10 feet here and film you facing you? I'd like to do the whole card, and he was so cool with me, and the whole round he was cool with me walking. But
he was great that round. I think he was in a really good headspace. He was in a really happy to be there kind of moment. I remember joking with him, asking him what kind of music he was listening to and stuff, because he's sitting there
rocking out
and everything. But
exactly.
the day before over at Jackson, there were a couple times where he had asked people to move or felt that, not necessarily media, but felt that spectators were maybe moving in the background. And yeah, so I mean, it's tough. It's a high pressure situation, and some people, adapt to it in different ways. And, and I think just with Johnny, it's just based on whatever, it varies by the day. And I don't think there's any problem with that. I think, like you said, it kind of behooves the media teams to know the players and get to know them and know their preferences too. And honestly, don't be afraid to ask. Like, most of these guys, if you just ask them, are pretty cool. I mean, you look at like they'll still half the time like sign autographs walking down the fairway. Like I wouldn't ask them to do that, but they're nice people generally speaking, unless they just,
Yeah. Are having a
carded an
day.
8.
Unless they're having a
Yeah.
day or carding an 8.
Yeah, and I bring back a point a few years ago. I was playing in a B tier in northern Wisconsin, and I was in my disc golf guy mode where, as usual, not focused on the actual tournament. I was literally playing on a card with someone, and I was recording shots of fellow card mates with my camcorder. And at one point, someone who's, I'll say, even almost notorious for being easily distracted was playing on the card. And at one point, he turned to me, he said, "Quit recording me." And I'll admit I wasn't as polite as Will Jenkins, and I was like,
Really?
No, I'm good. I'll record. I'm just recording shots. Clearly I wasn't.
Do you have a recording of this
Of him saying it?
of this transgression, of this interaction?
No, I just remember him saying it to me, and I was like, no, I'm just recording stuff. He's like, I don't want you recording me, and I'm like, well, I think I said something like, I don't really care what you want. Was kind of my reaction. And I'm
Maybe a
not
little
saying
more
I'm
colorfully.
necessarily proud of it, but it brought up a lot of questions. And in that case, I'm going to throw another goofy component on it. I'm good friends with the owner of the private property who was hosting this B tier. Now, as some people have said on the board, does a private versus public property, does that factor in somewhere? I think it does, because we're now shifting into a lot of our premier courses are found on private pieces of land. And there again, who has, this scoping authority as to what can or can't be recorded?
I've got you covered there.
Okay.
Because we actually do have, like, when you talk about premier events, at least from the PDGA side of things, we have a major and NT policy. And so I think that would probably kick into another gear of falling under the competition manual stuff there. There's going to be media there. It's going to be covered a lot more heavily. But I mean, at the same time, public park versus private, like these are all kind of things. And really, when you do look at our media policy right now, a lot of our media policies relate to the media producers themselves, but we really don't have a heck of a lot that relates to the players and their role and their obligations. I mean, there are a few things. It says
they need to be available for the media.
They need to be available 30 minutes,
more than 30 minutes before, or whatever.
But other than that, I mean, and again, most of these guys are pretty cool, and ladies, I should say, are pretty cool, and will help you out and do interviews with you, or just as long as you're polite to them and grab. I mean, at Vegas, we were pulling people 10, 15 minutes before the round and doing little short interviews with them and stuff. I know Jomez has been doing short in the bags on like Facebook Live before rounds now, which is a nice way for people to get to know what people are going to be seeing on video a little more. And so I think it's just it's a little bit of a give and a take, and we have to all keep working together on it. And it's just it's kind of fun. I don't know, like it may seem kind of weird and confusing, but it's
because you get a regular paycheck. It's fun for you. I'm just kidding.
But I mean, it means that we're growing.
It does.
You know what I mean? And it means that we're having some headaches that maybe other sports have already ironed out. But that just means that things are moving in the right direction. So it can be a little confusing, and maybe people will get their feathers ruffled if we don't have something spelled out clearly already. But we'll get there, and we'll keep working on it and continue. I mean, we have there's so much more going now for media than there was just like 2 or 3 years ago. So it's this constantly evolving process.
And Chris Young, I think that's the classic term we're all really arrived at, is these are part of our growing pains. And it is somewhat exciting to know, as you were just saying, Steve, yourself and Marty Gregoire and Johnny and myself and Jomez and Central Coast, we're helping to some degree shape and mold some of those policies and procedures that may be implemented for years to come. Because again, rewind 5 years ago, no one was fighting over a lead card. No one was making any money on Patreon or YouTube. None of those things were happening. And now, that wild, wild west mentality is starting to get buttoned up a little bit. And so for those reasons, it's growing pains, and ultimately it is all good stuff.
Yeah, there's a reason why the PGA handbook is like this thick, and ours is 72 pages or whatever it is. Because every time they ran into something, they created a rule, and we're getting there. We're shaping and molding it. Well,
and I think we're seeing even that transition. Think about when I think of it as at both PGA events, and for some reason I think of it at casinos. At one point, cell phones and cell phone pictures weren't really allowed at either. And as technology and as we move forward, the policies are all continuing to evolve in both of those situations. I just remember walking into a casino many years ago, and they're like, "Don't you dare pull your phone out, like to record anything, to take a picture, to do anything. Your phone might be interfering with one of the slot machines." And of course, at a PGA event, they don't want you capturing certain images. So, and some of that stuff is changing and evolving as does technology. So, it'll be interesting to see. I think back to last year at the Hall of Fame, and I think we'll just say Jomez was on second card, maybe Ian and Central Coast was on lead card. And I was looking at the list of players I was going to go out and get bonus footage, and I'm like, oh, the fifth card looks like a lot of fun. I think Simon Lizotte was on it, whomever. I was like, I'm going to go out there. I remember showing up, and Simon turns, he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm going to follow your card today. You good with that?" He's like, "I'm on the fifth card. Why are you following us?" I'm like,
"Because he kind of likes the break sometimes, I think."
Yeah, and I'm like, your card looks fun. So really, my question though is, because there was this somewhat stacked card, I'll say, on the fifth card.
Oh yeah.
So my question to you is, do you feel like whatever policy we talk about, is it going to be fair to factor in all cards? And because I worry sometimes someone will say, well, there's certain provisions on the lead card, but not for the second, third, or fifth card.
Right. Like, and that comes in with like, certain rulings, and we don't have officials on all cards, so we can't have them on the lead card. The way I look at this one, and this is just me speaking for me and having not run it by anyone at PDGA, so take that for what it's worth. I think the ultimate goal for us is to eventually get our coverage to where we're like golf, where there are multiple holes covered, and no matter if you're on the 8th card or the 2nd card, you might have potential being covered. So I would think that any policy we would craft would hopefully be a little more forward looking and take that in mind, to where if there's a cameraman or camera crew that shows up on your card and you are playing at X tier of event or whatever, you're expected to be on film.
Okay. Yeah, I mean,
but again, yep. Something like that would have to, media teams all got to be properly credentialed. It can't just be. It wouldn't just be, Rando Joe and his 10 subscriber YouTube channel. Like you would need
some vetting of sorts.
Again, this is just one of the. It's more of that stuff. It's more the process of just making everything more legitimate.
Yeah, I know someone that submitted a policy about that. I'm waiting to hear back from it.
Huh.
All right. I think
about this policy.
it might be out there somewhere. I'm still waiting to hear back from some people.
We're working on some stuff. Don't worry.
All right. Good. All right. Well, let's talk. Since we have you here, and we didn't get a chance to get to it with Dana, and you, if I recall correctly, are a big proponent of the National Collegiates. What type of?
Yes.
Yeah. What information can you give us about that? Because Dana didn't really have much, and to be honest, other than the champions, I haven't heard too much. So why don't you play Dynamite for a little bit and tell us about the collegiates?
Well, it's there's somewhere probably that you could go and like read articles about this. So let me just give a plug.
We're Smashies, we can't read.
It's called pdga.com.
Okay.
And you can. Oh no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, I mean, we had National Collegiates over the weekend out at the Hippodrome in South Carolina. I always get confused because it's North Augusta, South Carolina, right over the border. And yeah, I mean, what do you want to know? There's 4 flights. You have the championship flight, which is basically the top men's teams, women's flight, which is the top women's teams, and then you actually have 2 other flights, the first flight and second flight, which is for any schools that have multiple teams and they can play in lower divisions or whatever. And so out of the the men's flight, or I mean the championship flight for the men's teams, Mississippi State won by like 33 strokes, I think.
Yeah, I'm looking at it the results right now. They crushed Texas A&M.
And the same thing in the women's division. Liberty won by 40. Not very close matchups this year, which is diverged from the past. I think last year the gap was maybe 4. The year before that was 8. A few years back there was a playoff. So this was kind of an outlier in terms of these teams blasting everyone. And then in the first flight and second flight, NC State won. And then on top of that, you also have individual champions. So they'll play singles rounds, doubles rounds, and after a couple of the singles rounds, they'll crown the individual champions. Coolest part about that, the championship flight, the men's winner, it was Andrew Lowry out of Texas, and he came from the 4th card, shot a 1091 rated final 9.
What?
And won the individual championship from the 4th card. It was pretty ridiculous.
But who was filming it?
I don't think we had anyone there.
Okay.
We
Not
were
on the
talking
4th
about that.
card.
I was actually bringing up, before I continue more with that, you mentioned Marty Gregoire. We have to give, if you haven't already,
Yes.
I don't know on the show, but we have to give a shout out to Marty. They just welcomed their new little boy Peter into the world. So congratulations to the Gregoire family. But we were talking, like, this is the kind of event we definitely need to get some more media out to in the future. It's got a different feel, different vibe, that all the teams are in uniform and doing like opening ceremonies and just pomp and circumstance. And it's a different format. People would have to get used to that. But I really think people would enjoy watching an event like this just for it being the outlier on the calendar.
Yeah, Terry and I have talked about coverage of this event and how difficult, like logistically, it would be because you've got team aspects and individual and women and
yeah, you'd have to make some concessions on what you actually covered.
Exactly, trying to find because as you said, the guy from the 4th card came back to win, and it's definitely a unique event, and I'd love to figure out a way to cover it, but yeah, that's tough. But I think you're right. I think this is one of those events that could draw some eyeballs if it was properly covered.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those spots where I think there's just so much potential for growth. Like the Liberty women's team who won, all 4 of the women on that team have been playing disc golf for less than a year.
They have a pretty good teacher.
True. They do have Hannah and Paul. But I mean, the fact that you have 4 women who are now national champions and have only been playing disc golf for a year is pretty amazing for them. And also, I think, shows that there's a lot of growth potential in the sport, that people can come in and have that level of success and, grow from there. I mean, it just, but the other part of it that I find really interesting is that, not all these, it's not like college basketball or college football where then they're all going to go on to the pros. It's actually kind of the opposite. So it's just a unique thing that we have in the sport, and really just a spot that I look forward to every year. Like one of my goals eventually through PDGA, once I get my legs under me a little more with the job in the fall, is to try and cover some more events, more college events, if we have the scoring infrastructure and things like that to actually have more information. That's really the hardest part. Is a lot of the qualifying events are still pretty small events. They're being run a lot of times by the college kids. So just they're not like huge, well-established events that are already set up. So there's some things that need to come together, I think, a little more for, top tier coverage of it like we have with other events now.
Let's just get UDisc on it. Come on, UDisc. Step it up.
Do it.
Yeah. Get some I want to see a college app.
They're too busy going to Europe this weekend.
Yes.
We're going
to talk a little bit about that.
Very exciting for them.
Real quickly, to wrap up the college stuff, because I'm just flat out not smart enough to read, but they should read it, pdga.com. How many colleges represented, and then how many total players were down there this weekend? I'm sure you have those off the top of your head.
I would have to go back and double check, but I want to say it was like 270 players, and I think 36 or 38 schools, somewhere in the 30s.
Okay.
I know that was down from the previous year. I think they limited the number of qualifiers, and honestly, they had some last minute changes at the Hippodrome. They had to nix a couple of courses because they've had some management structure changes there. So not surprising to have a couple fewer teams, and actually probably a little bit better for organizers to have a couple fewer teams because there were 2 fewer courses this year.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's an awesome event. It always is right around the same time, second, third week or so of April. We've seen it conflict with other big events sometimes.
Yeah,
but
I think last year it was around the same. I think it was the same weekend as Jonesboro last year, so a lot of their volunteers were gone at collegiates.
exactly. So it's growing, and I know Alan and Pete and so many other people over there have worked so hard to get it to where it is, and I only see good things for it, moving forward. So thank you for all the insights on it.
Yeah, no, my pleasure.
Do you want to talk about your history in the adult entertainment? Or
Oh
yeah,
man,
is there a story we should
do
uncover there?
I mean, we pulled up one out of Stokely. We expect one from all our guests.
That was right when I came into the interview too, because I was like, doing the family thing, put my daughter to bed and
What
everything.
the
and
hell
so that
is
was the best
Smashbox
way to
talking about?
It was
God.
great. No, I loved it. Like it was, like that was like the hard question to ask him. I was proud of you guys for doing
thanks.
it.
Yeah, that's Terry, because I didn't know if we were going to go there or not. And Terry, you very skillfully worked your way.
No, I thought it was great. And you know what though, if you're going to ask anyone that question, it's going to be someone like Scott, who just seems super forthcoming.
And that goes with the fact that it's only someone like Scott that would put himself in that predicament. I mean, well, maybe not only, but mostly. So
sure. No, I don't have any ties there that
All
I'm
right.
aware of.
Seeing how we are moving into a national tour, of course, we talk a lot about pro tours because we've been covering them live.
Sure.
We obviously touch on national tours, but we're moving into this national tour next week. By this time next week, we're going to be in Emporia on site, probably every night live. Give us your hot take on GBO as everyone shifts to that side of the country.
Oh, hot take. I hope they can like turn off the water spigot coming out of the sky. I'm just worried about the weather. If the weather holds up, I'm going to be pumped. So,
Okay.
you get what you get when you're going to the Midwest in springtime. And so we just got to buckle up and hang on. I think it's going to be interesting to see, how the scores play out with the men playing all 3 rounds at the country club this year. With that being the change, but I love the dynamic. Actually, like they're always tweaking things and changing it up, and I give them credit for that. They run a great event out there. I'm excited to go out and do what we can to just help. I mean, they have it pretty much locked down there. It's they make it so easy to go out there, and you're working, but you're also kind of enjoying the event because they just know what they're doing.
Yeah, Bobby, heading up the media component. Of course, Doug, and everybody else, all hands on deck. All of their, dozens and dozens of employees and the PDGA support. But you're right. When you get there, it's just a well-oiled machine. And having Bobby, from a media perspective, overseeing everything that he does, it's just it makes it so enjoyable. It's almost like a working vacation. Maybe not. When will you get into town? When will we see you?
I'm actually going to get in probably Wednesday afternoon. So day before things start. Couldn't make it out there much earlier than that, but I'll get there in time for the all the players meeting and all that, and we've got enough time to knock it out. I'm the thing that is I keep forgetting, like I haven't been there for GBO. I've been there for Worlds. And so the influx of people to Emporia, I'm quite intrigued to see, like, does Emporia experience traffic? I don't know. It was pretty easy when I was there last time.
It'll be all disc golfers.
Yeah, I mean,
watch who you flip off, because it's probably a golfer in another division.
Throw a destroyer through the window.
Yeah, exactly.
I try not to. I live in Southern California, so I try and keep the middle fingers to just like a thumbs down or something, because you never know. It's a little dicey.
Anything you want to share with us? Anything else before we let you go tonight?
No, I'm pumped that you guys had me on. Thank you. I'm sorry that I had to go after Scott, and appreciate that everyone. I just want to say thank you. Like the transition from doing what I did at UltiWorld to PDGA has been very smooth. Everyone's been incredibly welcoming, and then even people who followed the work that I did before have picked up and followed now. We've been doing, writing on the site and PDGA radio and everything. And so and I'm incredibly grateful for that. Thank you to everyone who, I mean, I've kind of, it's weird. I've kind of just worked up to doing this as I never really thought if you would have told me like 5-6 years ago that I would have gotten to do disc golf media as my career, I would have probably laughed at you. So
yeah.
I'm very humbled and very grateful. So yeah, thank you.
Well, you've done an amazing job. Of course, a no-brainer as the positioning and the work became available over at PDGA, and so watching you move into that role has been awesome. Of course, as members, proud 20+ year members of the PDGA. We love seeing everything grow and expand and continue to improve, and you're certainly a huge part of that. You plug the podcast yourself and Sarah, killing it over there. Tell everybody where they can read more and where they can hear more about what you got going on.
Yeah, everything that I'm doing is going through the big PDGA site. So head over there, or you can subscribe to PDGA Radio on all the usual spots, iTunes, Stitcher, wherever else you go. And yeah, Sarah and I have a lot of fun doing the show. As we've gotten to know each other more, I feel like it's gotten better. We've gotten a little looser, which sometimes maybe we're a little too loose, but we tighten it up when we need to. And it's been a lot of fun. So, and she's been great. Like, her insights that she brings to the table have been phenomenal. So I'm really pleased with how that's been going. Real quick before I leave you guys, are we doing this thing next week? What are we doing? Are you going to be sitting there are you going to be sitting there in the booth with Robert? Is that your thing?
Well, there's still conversation as to how it's going to unfold next
Am I letting
week.
too many cats out of the bag right now? We're like a week out.
No.
Short deal.
Obviously we experienced a lot of great advantages and successes in the Jonesboro
booth experiment.
Yeah, I guess.
Great. It's fantastic.
And there were a few disadvantages. And I said to Steve earlier tonight, Steve Dodge, I said, what's crazy is I feel like every advantage and disadvantage that we thought would happen actually unfolded. We kind of forecasted correctly the good and the bad of being in the booth. And overall, we definitely felt like it was a good experience. And we're going to continue to grow and evolve and see what makes for the best fit. I think next week, though, it's going to be more of that booth-like experiment, but we're flexible, and being in Emporia, all of us, our entire staff, with great internet wherever we go, thanks ValueNet, wherever we go, we've got lots of options, and that's what excites me about continuing to grow and develop over there. So, and then look for a nightly show every single night in all the random locations around Emporia, and that's kind of one of the highlights of the year as well.
You're gonna have to scavenger hunt.
Yeah. And we'll have to have you come sit in and join us and give us a few of your insights.
I'd love to
as we do that.
And he's trying to wedge his way into the broadcast. That's what he's hinting at.
I think it'd be fun. I think it'd be blast.
I think so too.
Sideline guy, I'm here for you.
All right. Well, we're excited. No, we'll continue.
That was one thing I think people really did want. They wanted to hear from you, Terry. So number one, I'm glad to hear that you're going to be doing it. But number two, on the ground insights, man, I'll be your Pam Oliver.
Ooh.
Or to a lesser degree,
Aaron Andrews.
I don't know. Aaron Andrews.
Stay away from Brett Favre. All right. So I don't know.
I don't think that
wasn't her.
That's someone else. Was she a sideline reporter? It was Jen Sturger.
I don't think she was a sideline reporter. I believe she was just media in the Jets.
She was a media personality.
Yeah, media personality.
Either way, I think Terry just wants to be in the booth so he doesn't have to be out in the rain.
That would be one advantage. Yeah, to actually not.
So him and Robert can have a hair off or something.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's going to be great.
It will be.
Getting it. All right, Steve, we appreciate everything you're doing. Keep killing it out there. We're looking forward to seeing you next week, and we'll check in with you there.
All right, take it easy, guys.
All right, have a good night. See ya. Again, Steve Hill of PDGA.com, PDGA Radio. Check it out, formerly of Alta World. Alta World still out there, also killing it, giving lots of great content, news, articles, podcasts, the whole 9 yards. So we appreciate everything that's going on. All right.
Let's go over some real quick PDGA information. And it's more PDGA/UDisc. We got a message here from Matt over at UDisc, and he wanted to talk about the big event over in Europe. That is, for the first time, UDisc is
going international.
They're going international. Previously, international was kind of run. I forget the exact name of the company. That they also did the metric system with UC, but now they have brought in UDisc for their top tier scoring system. And Matt wanted to pass along a little information, basically saying that it's going to be in Finland, about an hour and a half north of Helsinki. Ugh, wow. I even knew that one. It's the home of the Finnish Olympic team that nearly all the top players in Finland are there. Every 1,000-euro player except for Seppo and UC because he doesn't play anymore. It's the biggest PDGA Pro-only event in Finland. It has very much a grow the sport mentality. They're trying to sideline, or it says here, they even have side events for families to help grow the sport. So you can, as a player, you can bring your family or invite other people so they can kind of play these little side games. It's put on by Bogey Free Productions. It's a new promotion company in working to grow the sport in Finland. I think we have seen Bogey Free Productions one other time overseas. I for some reason, that rings very familiar. I could be wrong with that, though.
Are you confused with Bogey Free Bags?
I'm not. Definitely not confused about that.
You're welcome, Mike.
They actually reached out to UDisc to bring, as he says, the top-tier scoring experience to Europe. It's an 8,600-foot course designed by two-time Finnish national champion, Leo. Peronen, I believe is how it's right. Peronen. Come on.
I wasn't listening to you.
Leo.
Peronen.
Sure. All right. Good. And actually, they're bringing in Josh from UDisc, who's over in London, is going to be flying in. So Josh and Laura of the PDGA Europe will be attending. So it's going to be a big event for them. So keep an eye out on UDisc this weekend. Join, take a look at their website, go into the chat if you're interested in the event. It'll be one of the first times maybe that UDisc has been used for a huge event without any sort of live coverage. So it's going to be more of a unique experience in that you're not going to be able to just flip on live coverage, or there'll probably be maybe some post-production, but I haven't heard of any. So take a look at UDisc this weekend, and you're going to get some really good European disc golf.
Well, thank you to UDisc. Thank you, Matt and Josh. You guys are doing great things out there, and it's awesome to see. We'll have some action coming in from the other side of the globe throughout the weekend. Wow. It's funny. I totally glossed right over the Skyline Classic, which I guess we could talk about in the after show. This massive B tier. All right. So B tier I ran this weekend. I'll get into a few details. A couple of our smashies that are out on the board were in attendance as well, which is pretty awesome to see and experience, as I'm not around much to run events anymore, but when I am, it's great to have so many people there. I don't know if I had notes that I made somewhere, but I think we can cover all that in the after show. So, and
great to me.
And I think it's been great so far tonight. So, all right, guys, we're going to call it. We've got I'm going to have a giveaway in the after show, so stick around for that, as we usually do always do for our Patreon supporters. So stick around as we'll be doing that action. I want to, of course, thank our special guest in Scott Stokely. I want to thank our regular in Dynamite Dana Vicich, and then as well Steve Hill from PDGA.com and the media team over there. Thanks for the insight, Steve. Thanks for the conversation about the media plan or plans that will continue to grow and develop for some dicey territory. It is an exciting time that we're in as we dial things in. So for Johnny V and myself, Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, that's been podcast 191. We look forward to seeing you guys in the after show, where we'll give away some free stuff and talk about other random things in disc golf. We'll see you then. You step inside the Smashbox.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the Smashbox TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. This is the SmashBoxxTV podcast 191
After show.
All right. So I just ran outside.
I did. I told everybody you ran outside real quick.
Because I've got some stuff I want to give away. And let's do it right away.
Okay.
So this last weekend, well, first you get us set up. So this last weekend I ran. I was just thinking of.
I could just give it away, but no, I want to talk about it first.
I'm going to tease this out. Tease it out. No, this weekend I ran the Skyline Classic, a PDGA B tier, powered by Innova. Innova worked with me to assemble a really ridiculously large players pack, consisting of a ton of really good stuff. And, well, weather struck. It was less than awesome. I've yet to actually post Sunday's Instagram. The rain and ice and sleet and everything else that came now, there were different bands. In Chicago area, it was just rainy and nasty. Little north of Chicago into southern Illinois where we were for the event, more of like this rain, sleet kind of nastiness. And then north of us, kind of where we're at right now, at Johnny's house and even further, tons of snow.
Heaviest snow I've ever shoveled. Hands down.
Well, you didn't do a very good job out on the little walkway to my car.
Oh,
so
God,
you
no,
know.
I left that because I didn't need it.
Yeah, because you're lazy. So
Yeah, that's fine.
just
Wow,
it
it
swept
pushed
across the whole, of course, throughout the Midwest, and we can only complain so much. I know we had, rain and ice where I was, and then parts of, where Matt or Matt is from UDisc had, 10, 12, 30 inches, whatever, of snow. Ridiculous. So needless to say, my relatively generous, or should I say liberal, refund policy really got challenged this weekend. And up until Friday night at 9 p.m., I allowed anyone for any reason to fully withdraw from the event and to get a full refund. They could either get a refund or they could get a player's pack. Of course, the player pack was worth double their entry anyway, but you had that option. So a lot of people, though, by Thursday and Friday, I think I processed, I want to say on Thursday or Friday, one of the 2 days, I processed like 28 refunds. More refunds than I've ever processed in my previous 100-plus tournaments that I've run. It was ridiculous. And again, that's just a testament to how bad the weather really was. So I processed all of those. We end up having just a nasty day on Saturday. Sunday morning looks like it's going to be as bad or worse. And as people are checking in, I do a very informal poll. Thank you to Tom McManus, who came up and helped with check-in on Sunday from his truck where I was doing check-in inside. I did a very informal poll, and I said, would you be upset if you just played one round today? And out of originally there were 61 people that were supposed to be there. I think about 4 or 5 canceled that morning. So out of the 50-ish or so people, 40 plus had said, I'd be good with one round today. It's nasty out here. And I was thinking long-term in terms of the weather's only supposed to get worse throughout the day. So although it's horrible right now, in 8 or 9 hours, it's going to be even worse, no matter where you're going. Well, about 5 people said, I'd really like to play 2 rounds. They also almost all lived within 10 minutes of there. And that's fine. So I ultimately made a very tough decision to say, all right, we're just going to play one round. You're going to get your PDGA round sanctioned. You're still going to get the Wisconsin Tour points, which is a pretty big deal. You're still going to play for the plaques and the trophies. And of course, your player pack is still going to be massive. And I would say we had more than a can you have more than a consensus? We didn't have quite it wasn't unanimous, but it was definitely consensus. Was good with that. So everyone goes out and plays their first round. And of course, when we went and set up and got all the player packs ready and everything for people to come in at lunch or what would be their final round, their one and only round, it got a little nicer. I'll admit. I mean, it ended up the nastiness turned to just a heavy snowfall, which is tolerable, of course, when you play golf. I've played golf in 10 times worse conditions than that. but it didn't continue to get as nasty or stay as nasty throughout the rest of the day. And of course, at that point, that's when some people are like, well, it's not so bad now. I wouldn't mind playing a second round now.
But at that point, you've already, earlier in the day, you talked to everybody, and playing a 1-round event is a much different mentality than playing a 2-round event. People may have been pushing to change to jockey for position towards the end of the round. Once you make the decision in the morning, you can't go back.
Bingo. And that's exactly what I said. I felt, you know what, we stated at the beginning of the round, you were going to be playing 1 round. So, and you could go even as silly as someone saying, oh, I'm only playing 1 round for sure today. All right, I brought 6 towels. I'm going to use all 6 towels this round. I don't need to say. I mean, that's just one silly little example. But when you knew it, you had that 1 round. It was 1 and done. And so therefore, I could not change my mind at that point. And I wanted to reiterate, and I'll do it again now. There's absolutely zero advantage to me as a TD calling this a 1-round event versus 2. I have nothing to gain by doing that. Everything's said and done as it is. Nothing to gain by that. So it was a tough decision, but I still stand by it. I feel like it was the right decision. And given with the exact same circumstances, I would have made the exact same call again. So I just want to thank everyone that traveled there safely. Somebody was in the ditch just short of the park, and another golfer pulled them out. There was carpooling that ended up taking place because it made the most sense. So all in all, I want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you for your patience. Thank you for your understanding. It was not easy or fun for me to make the call. Somebody claimed that I was getting soft, so to speak, on weather in Wisconsin. I'm good with weather. I think we're all good with the weather. This was of a certain degree of nastiness that a lot of people also probably weren't in the mindset for either, being mid-April.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Some friends of ours on the way back from Chicago spun their car out on the highway,
which is
on Saturday night, right before the event. A couple hours north in Green Bay, there was an entire hotel whose roof caved in right over the pool area. Thankfully, nobody was hurt seriously. This was, like I said, my in-laws got 30 inches of snow at their house. And this was, in some areas of Wisconsin, this was an epic snowfall. In other areas, it was just it was more dangerous than crazy conditions.
And we were in the event itself took place in the more dangerous area, not in the snowfall area.
And what really sucked for those of you that maybe aren't familiar with cold areas, it had rained first. So it was a rain that then decided to turn to ice, which then turned to snow, and then rain and ice and snow. It was like a layered. But the base layer was ice, which makes it very difficult. Dangerous tee pads. Hopefully the tee pads are nice and clear. So, and Jeff Hawkins says 30-inch drifts. No, this was 30 inches of snow. That's not even including the drifts. I saw a picture of some 5 and 7 foot drifts up on some buildings. Doors. There was a picture on the news of a door. Someone opened their door and saw nothing but snow because they had drifted up the door. It was pretty epic. It's kind of some cool images, but ultimately some very dangerous situations. So you called it. What are you giving away? Let's get to it.
Well, I want to thank Innova again.
Oh, okay.
I want to thank Upper Park and Innova. Between the two of them, I feel like I put together a pretty massive players pack. I can't even give it all away in one sitting here. So throughout a week or two, I'll be giving away a couple different items from it. In fact, I'm even switching it up a little bit to give away some alternative things as part of it. But here, one of the things that I did give away within the player pack, every single competitor, ultimately, one of the discs that they received was the brand new Innova Rat. And so with that, I've got one right here. 170 grams it's marked at. This is a brand new Innova Rat. Is that covering my face? I got a rat face. There you go. You can grab it.
It's an interesting profile.
Speed 29. It is a...
I'll say this.
Okay. What will you say?
It's an interesting profile for a disc, which I haven't felt on a particular Innova disc before. And the stamp is unusual for an Innova stamp. I feel like this isn't a style that they would normally go with. So it's definitely unique.
Okay. Well, that's
very shallow rim, it feels like.
The numbers, I know other podcasts don't put the emphasis that they should. No. The numbers are 4203. So Innova Rat, I know you've seen some, I was going to say some buzz about it, but you've seen some talk and buzz about it running around. But I got a brand new Innova Rat, ready for you to go. I'm going to throw in also one of the larger sized SmashBoxxTV microfiber towels. Nice towel. This is, I've got a couple different sizes that I've made up. The players didn't even get one of those, so you get one of those. And then thanks to my friends over at Night Eyes, one of the cool products that they make that helps out specifically with disc golf is it's a reusable light stick, but then has a nice little carabiner on it. Obviously, it's great. If you play glow golf or you just want to go out in the backyard and set this up on any basket, it's great because it just latches right to it. So I'm going to put all those items together in a box, my disc in a box, and I will ship it out to you. So
to one of our Patreon?
One of our Patreon supporters will be winning this. Next week, there'll probably be a little bit more of the player pack action that I will be
You've got
sending
a few
your
extra
way.
ones.
I have some, and if you're dying to get your hands on a player pack, a full one, which includes a couple discs, upper park bag, a small cinch sack upper park bag that they came out with, a hat, a shirt, a deck of cards, all sorts of stuff. If you're interested in that, Innova has graciously said, you know what? You've got extra player packs. You could send them back if you must. You're welcome to. Or why don't you sell some of those and attach that and create a fundraiser for yourself? And then I've attached that along with the U.S. Masters, Tim Selinsky Masters coverage that I'm going to be doing with you in a couple weeks. So if you want to support me, you can get a whole bunch of stuff and get and support one of my upcoming vlog projects, the Tim Selinsky U.S. Masters. So it's kind of a win-win for everyone.
All right, well, let's
give this away.
Let's give this away real quick. If you want to be eligible for our giveaways, as we say every week, you can go to patreon.com/SmashBoxxTV and support the podcast in any monetary value that you choose, and you will be eligible for our giveaways. I want to thank everyone out there who particularly does support us, all the new people that have been out there since when we opened it. Every one of you has made this podcast what it is, and we really appreciate it. So we need a number between, Alex Muniz. I'm going to go with him. He's predicted, I was going to ask a number between 1 and 5. He threw 4 out there.
On top of it.
I'm just going to go with it. Thanks, Alex. Or Alexis. I keep calling him Alex because I'm reading this like the first half. Thanks, Alexis. I'm going to go with 4. So let me pull this up.
Generate it 4 times here on random.org, and then Johnny will go to the spreadsheet.
We have 181 people in our list. There's the first number. There's the second number. There's the third number. The fourth number is number 106. 106, if I scroll down, is Jeff Hungerford. Jeff Hungerford. Congratulations, Jeff.
Jeff Hungerford out of Colorado. Also featured in the South Florida Open Round 1 coverage on the Disc Golf Guy channel. Jeff Hungerford, PDGA number 588, maybe?
Something like that.
Thanks
a lot, Jeff. Thank you for supporting us. We really appreciate it. It is,
I just want to know if I'm right.
Our honor. So you can expect that from Terry. That's 958 or 588. No, 588 is Nick Hart apparently.
Yeah.
So as Terry does a search,
I know he's 3 digits.
Anyway, what else do we have for the after show? You said you had a list.
688. Darn it! I was so close. A couple quick things. One, I want to El Guapo baskets. I think running a little support raffle fundraiser. I don't know any of the details. I just know they're running it to help support their women's only event. So go out and find them on Facebook. And you're more than I think you can win some baskets, and in winning some baskets, you're also supporting their I think it's the El Nino event is what it's called, their women's only event. So I wanted to give a quick shout out for him.
Someone asked, who would you pick to win disc golf dancing with the stars?
Disc golf dancing with the stars?
If you had to line up all the disc golfers that we know, and you said, all right, get out on the dance floor. Show me your moves. Who are you picking for the winning disc golf dancing with the stars?
Oh my gosh.
Who do you think has the best dance moves? I seen that it ain't Germ.
No. That's
not AJ
that's
Risley
painful.
either.
No.
If this question were about 12 years ago, I'd throw you and I on that table, but
wow.
now I just throw my back out.
Gosh, I don't know. Think about, I mean,
but just Simon.
I think about people, if you're going traditional,
Like-
so much of your ballroom dancing, I think about who are graceful and multi-talented. I think about some of our players that are really, I don't know, maybe this is stupid, but I think of like a James Conrad, who I know is this phenomenal juggler, and I think of maybe some gracefulness and some of the moves that might be there buried within in like a James Conrad. He comes to mind.
If you want to go old school, you could pick Kenny, because I think of people who are good at freestyling would probably be able to do something like that. And I know Germ is a freestyler and he's in his fair share, but I mean, if you want to go old school, you can't go wrong with the champ.
Well, then if you're going to go there, then you have to go with the Haas, Greg Haasfeld, the
True.
Maniac, probably one of our most talented disc golfer freestyler combos that I know of. The Haas, yeah, he would have to be, and hopefully he's on his way to a speedy recovery. I see he's out there doing a lot of work. How about the women's side? Oh, I know who it is.
If we're going to stay
Done.
old school, Juliana.
Okay, wrong.
Whoa,
No, she's
a world class freestyler, but
Yep.
and I could see her throwing down some waltz, some foxtrot.
I could too, but it's not even fair once I say it. She teaches dance class. Leslie Todd.
Oh, yes.
Leslie Todd's your winner.
I wasn't thinking Leslie.
Yeah, Sarah Lamberson might be there. I know she's doing some ballet.
She's back
getting
into doing ballet, so.
And I'm sure there's lots of other talented women. I'm not stalking your Facebook pages to find out, though. So, but two people that I know personally, Sarah has been putting herself out there in terms of some ballet stuff. And then, again, Leslie owned her own dance studio and, of course, very talented. And she did that for many, many years. So I'm going to have to go with Leslie Todd. I think she's your female Dancing with the Stars winner.
Bamarag on the board asks, how do I buy a player's pack from you and how much? I don't know how much, but I know you can reach out to Terry on Facebook and get a hold of him, and he will make sure to get all your detail information and get that sent out to you.
Yep. Shoot me a message on Facebook, and we can. I'll give you some details and information on doing just that. So, but again, and to wrap that up, thank you again, Innova. Thank you again, Upper Park. It's crazy to process so many different people that ultimately didn't want to brave it, which, again, I don't begrudge anyone. I guess it really brings up an interesting point to ask you. And I know we've had some lengthy conversations, and I know Dana was faced with a really tough challenge a few weeks ago as well. He ended up canceling a tournament outright the morning of. He canceled a tournament and then, worked with players on refunds and player packs. Is that the right call? Is there a refund time? I know there's a policy with the PDGA in which you must, you have these options. Was I silly in offering that when we do have such a great players pack to offer? But
no.
Is there any way you would have done it differently?
I would have offered, and maybe you did this, I would have said, listen, I can refund you, or I can ship you your players pack for an extra $5 or whatever the cost is, so that you're not taking too much of a bath on it, or maybe free shipping depending on how the numbers work out.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but other than that, no. There's no. We've talked about this. There's no hard and fast rule. I think you made the right decision with the possible dangerous conditions that we saw. People driving in the morning. It was Monday morning. I was driving my daughter to school, and I take a little side street. And the main streets were great. The side street, I went to stop, and I slid all the way past the street. And I had to actually slowly back up and turn around because they had not done it was nothing but glare ice. The entire road on this little side street, 22nd, down just a little south of here. So the conditions were horrible. You made the right choice, giving everyone the option. Anyone that wouldn't do that is not a good human being.
Good. Well, Luke out on the board, who lives in Wisconsin, says, if you don't get to play because of things outside of your control, refund should be given. You made the right call. I think one could argue that, because a gentleman on Saturday messaged me on Saturday morning. In fact, he woke me up as I was about to run the tournament, but he woke me up even before my alarm was to go off to tell me he's stuck in his driveway 2 hours north. This weather was very much forecasted. I then wrestled with the idea, thinking, well, if you didn't come closer to the event the night before, I'm not surprised you're stuck 2 hours north. The weather was much worse 2 hours north. I didn't feel the same way about that as I did someone who was 10 minutes away. Do you know what I mean? Like, you wake up and you say, well, I'm snowed in. Well, yeah, you're 2 hours north. I could have told you were going to be snowed in practically. Like,
you don't necessarily know that how bad it's going to be, how it's going to maybe drift. And
correct. I guess my point, though, is I don't know if that was totally outside of your control either, to say that, because I thought, well, if you really wanted to be at the event, for instance, you could have came closer the night before.
If it were a bigger event, I would agree with you.
Sure.
As far as scope and tier and things like that, I would agree with you. But for the smaller event like you had, I think you made the right choice.
Anyway, enough about that. But again, thank you to everyone.
What is on your list of things to talk about?
So what else did I see out there? One of my favorite topics. So we'll touch on it and go. I loved the idea that we did see, in fact, this weekend we saw Jomez coverage. I didn't see any because I don't watch post-production by anyone ever or live. But anyway, but just the fallout of yet again a commentary team. I think it was Ulibarri and Williams. And guess what? There was mixed reviews.
What?
Some people really worked up, and of course, some people just loving them. I've done co-commentary with Ulibarri myself. I thoroughly enjoy it, and I don't know when we're going to realize that. The takeaway for me is, I get it. Some people like them, some people don't. That I've learned to get on with. The takeaway is, you people also have to realize, the ones complaining, people have to get tried out. Williams and or Yuli.
Right here, Zach B says, horrible. James Havinger says, I thought they did great.
Exactly. So that proves my point. My point is this, though, more so, that if somebody's willing to do it, they have to be tried out. Yuli and or Williams could, one or both, go on to be two of the greatest commentators in disc golf history. Could be. One round or one weekend is not going to define them or their potential career.
And as we said, two good people might not have a good chemistry.
That too.
Two bad people might have a good chemistry and still be bad. But
and I get it. I also understand people are entitled to your opinion. I don't think you have to get out the pitchforks and like want to drive to Texas to stab them, all right, over it. And I feel like there was almost some of that sentiment out there. Like, and what's funny to me more so than anything is I think of combos and I sometimes will hear snippets of combos, or I think of individuals and I think, oh my gosh, they could be really great or they could be horrible, and they turn out to be the opposite, and then there's all this mixed reaction. Just letting you know. It's Chris, I disagree with you. Chris is on the board. He says Big Sexy is hands down the best. I have heard other commentary times, and this is not a rip on Big Sexy, but they're great. But I think there's other better teams that have been out there as well. And I think if everyone constantly wants to get on the board and immediately say, well, you're not Big Sexy, I therefore dismiss you, you're doing yourself a disservice. And I think that's part of the sentiment. And again, I have nothing to gain here because I had nothing to do with the event, filming it, producing it, putting it on my channel, or being part of the commentary in any capacity. It's just a little, what's the word? I don't even want to say compassion. Open-mindedness, little patience, a little bit of those. I think are what's needed. Now, you listen to someone 100 times.
I would do the beginning of patience.
There you go.
Can't whistle.
You listen to commentary now. That combo team does 100 rounds, and on the 101st, you're like, "F this." Okay, I got it. But simmer down. Not everybody's amazing instantly. So that was all. That was one of it.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then what's the one thing that is more predictable than
the step putt?
Arguments about commentary teams.
Arguments about step putts.
Arguments about jump putting / step putting.
Just check. Any video that Yuli's in, you can check that off. Any commentary that's not Big Sexy, check that. All right, we get it.
It's just too bad.
Hater gonna hate. Is what
Something
Chris
like
Young
that
says.
Okay. Seth out on the board. Hey, Seth, haven't heard from you or seen from you all night. Says, I just want Greenwell and Crazy John back. I think somebody needs to give them a platform. I totally agree. There's a lot of combos that either haven't happened or can happen or may never happen that should happen. Who knows? I think one thing that is also to be remembered, and somebody else posted it, I think people underestimate the effort and the time and the value that any commentators take to helping out.
Coming out of their free time.
Probably
at zero cost.
Probably, with zero compensation, or maybe or maybe not a burger or something. To sit down, to then put themselves out there, to make themselves available, to give at least an hour of their time, if not more. It's little patience, little compassion, maybe some understanding in there. Simmer down. That's what I'll say.
Someone says Stokely and Schwebby would be great. I don't think so. Not together. Individually, they could each be good with somebody else. I don't think that particular combo may be good. They're too gregarious, both of them. I think you need someone to almost bring to keep it level. I think individually you could pair those two with somebody else, but that's a whole nother conversation.
Exactly. And I think, and we could go on for days about dream teams, about, like I said, teams that may never happen, teams that could or shouldn't. And then there's surprise teams. I mean, I think we've also gotten to a point, unfortunately, where I feel like a lot of people think, well, if it's not a household name, then they can't be good either. And I really feel like, again, Big Sexy has helped pigeonhole that concept of like, well, if it's not two top-level pros, then they're just not going to give us good stuff. And I feel like that's really short-sighted as well, unfortunately. And finally, all I was waiting for is Team Howell 123 to say Terry and Doss. That's all I wanted to hear, so now I can shut up and move on.
Great.
That's not what I was looking for. All right. Anyway, those were the takeaways of what I saw. Again, didn't watch any of the footage, just like looking at the feedback. But then again, sometimes I look at the feedback even, and it disheartens me. And I have nothing to do with it. Cool thing is, at least one of the two aces made it on the Sports Center this weekend. So congrats to Jomez, and congrats to Ulibarri. It's always cool to see.
What do you think Bradley Williams feels? He had the first ace, and he didn't get on. And then Yuli throws some stupid sidearm. It goes in the basket.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome for Yuli. And Yuli's a big sports guy in general. I think it's really cool that he gets himself on ESPN.
Yeah. All right.
And congratulations to his brother, Pete, who hit the 1,000 rating mark.
Yes, that was awesome. For those that didn't see it, Paul Ulibarri made a really great post today. Almost a little too sappy. He's such a big sweetheart. But he made a very, very warm, heartfelt post regarding his brother, Pete. Pete, who is his big brother, and hit that 1,000-mile benchmark today on the PDGA ratings, which were released earlier. So congratulations to Pete. As many of you know, that 1,000 rated mark. What did I don't ask her? I don't care. What about Paige? She might be the one person whose rating I care about getting released today, and maybe somebody out there knows it already. She was what, last 978? I think I bought a disc to what is it, 29190? Is that her PDGA number? Can I be right on?
See, this is
2 tonight.
I don't want to put down anything that anyone's doing.
Do it. I'm gonna give me a commentary team. I'm gonna rip them.
No,
Maybe some videos.
what I
Page 978.
what I kind of chuckled at was DD selling a new page disc with her rating on it, like highest rated woman ever. And all I kept thinking is like, I'm gonna wait for the next one.
You jerk.
Just because I'm thinking this isn't her ceiling.
Probably obviously that's a great discussion point. Is it or isn't it?
I think we discussed it before, asking about the 1,000 rating. I said I don't necessarily think she's going to get there, but 990 is not out of the question for me. I think that's a really solid spot where she could get to. I think she's definitely going to break into the 980s. That's why I was watching the sell. I'm like, awesome, she's selling. That's good for Dee Dee. That's good for her. You know, get all that promotion going. But all I was thinking is like, going to be bigger. Her rating is going to be bigger.
But what if it doesn't? And I'm not saying
if it
won't.
If it doesn't, then I missed the boat. It's like selling at Bitcoin at its high. How come I didn't sell it?
You missed that boat.
How come I didn't sell it 18,000?
Yep.
I'm still holding on to mine, and it crashed down to 5,000 or 7,000. It could be the same thing, but I'm hoping Paige isn't the equivalent of Bitcoin. I'm hoping she's not 800 rated in a couple weeks.
I doubt it. All right. Some commentary callouts. People looking for some other people and describing some of your favorites. Paige, Madison, Zach Melton. Lots of good people out there. Paige and Madison is very entertaining. Yes, they certainly are. So it says, I don't know why. Chuck, I know you're on the board. Why does it still say, today is April 17th. Never mind. Yeah, her 978 rating is what's listed. And also listed for her career wins of 100. Now, did you miss out on that disc too? The career wins 100 disc?
You did.
Because I don't know if you're going to get, if that one's going to, I don't know. Maybe they'll have 104 disc for you, and 108.
I'll wait till she gets to the 200 mark.
How long? There's a good one to put on the calendar.
Okay.
How long before Paige Pierce?
She's at 100 right now. On average, I bet you she wins 15 events a year, maybe 20.
Okay.
Just because I know she's
only got 5 wins this year, bro. So far,
April. So we'll
5 for 5.
We'll just guess an average of 15 wins. That gets her there in about 8 years.
Okay.
So in 2025, that's a 7-year.
So you're gonna give her 7 years.
Give her 7 years. 2025. I bet you she hits. Maybe 2024 if she's lucky. If she really goes on tour the next 2 to 3 years, she could easily rack up 25 wins for a couple of years. But that's a pretty big number.
She better start playing those flex starts.
Get those DD flex starts in.
Yeah.
It wouldn't surprise me if she hit it around 2025. You get that 200 win.
Okay.
But she. Yeah.
I would give it a little more cushion. I think it's going to take 2 years after that. 2025. Yeah, I'd give her 2 years after that.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But
like I said, that's assuming she has to. I mean, she has to win 15 events a year. That's no. That's no slouch.
Seth says, I'm going with 8. She's going to be playing less, I think.
And that's kind of what I was thinking. So.
Okay, well, the 2025.
I have a Paige Pierce disc. I have another one of her fundraisers. So I can only fundraise so much for her.
Yeah. Again, if you want to do some fundraising, I mispronounced it. The La Nina Open from El Guapo Baskets. 9 baskets to raise funds for the event this year. Go out and get you some. All righty. I don't know if I have too much more craziness going on here. Of course, looking forward to next week. It's going to be kind of a crazy week. I didn't even tell you all this. I had a quick conversation with Doug Bjerkes today, your TD over at the Glass Blown Open. I think we may have loosely finalized loosely finalized some locations for next week's wrap-up shows / podcast that we're looking to do at the Glass Blown. Johnny V and I will be rolling into town sometime Monday evening.
I think the plan for us is to do a podcast on Tuesday
night from the Brickyard.
From the Brickyard.
20.
Wednesday, we are at the auditorium. It's not at the Granada this year.
Correct.
For the players meeting and the Q&A.
Correct, which will be two separate links for you guys to view and watch, probably.
I don't know. We'll see.
That's what I told them.
Okay. If that works out best for them, good.
Yep.
Which means we won't be doing a podcast that night.
Or we could do it right after.
I don't want to do a podcast that night.
Well, then I'll do one.
Okay. But then we probably will do one Thursday, Friday, and Saturday.
Yeah, so Thursday night, more than likely, there's going to be a mechanical bull happening. That's going to be taking place down at the Bourbon Cowboy on Thursday night. Friday night, out at the fairgrounds. They're all ready for us to go out there. There's going to be a bonfire, I think a Team Trilogy dinner and some other stuff going on Friday night. And then Saturday night, you'll likely find us right by the Dynamic Disc storefront as the block party is taking place on Saturday night. So we will be roaming around to those various locations, hosting the podcast. So certainly stop by, say hi, join us, all that kind of good stuff.
And Simon is playing. He posted on his social media, his Facebook, that he's feeling good and he's looking forward to GBO. So,
okay, we'll see if that's going to happen. Hopefully.
Someone asked, "How about the Bucks down 0-2?" I think they're gonna lose the first round against the Celtics.
Go 0-5.
I don't.
0-6.
I don't believe they're gonna be able to 0-6. I think they're gonna get probably 2 wins, but ultimately end up losing. So, GBO predictions, Terry.
Jeez.
Anybody? I mean, it's such a. If you're putting
Simon, Paul, Ricky.
Yeah, I was gonna say if you're putting these guys on the same course for 3 rounds, it's hard not to pick one of those 3. It's hard not to pick Ricky. Although he did just finish like 9th or 7th or something after shooting another sub 1,000 rated round. And Paul just shot at 1050. But the last time that happened, what happened? The next week, Ricky won. So if you told me that we were going to see that again, it wouldn't surprise me to say Ricky's going to walk away with this one.
How many rounds at the GBO?
3.
I think there'll be 3 rounds. I'm hoping we'll see all 3 rounds. Because if not, that means there was another weather cancellation. Jeff says, I want to see Johnny V riding the mechanical bull. I think the world would like to see that.
I don't think they would.
Yes, we'll make it happen. Eric says, see you guys at the GBO. Can't wait. Sounds great, Eric. And Eric, you asked about the Kalamazoo Crack Plastic Classic footage that's off my phone. That may see the light of day at some point, but I would not hold your breath. It's, I think, all on my phone, maybe. Is Doss playing? As far as we know of, he is. Actually, I reached out to him via a messenger earlier today, but then I set my phone down, so I'm not sure if what he's got going on, but I was going to check in with him. I know him and Val are obviously talking about being there. The question is, are they both going to be playing? And I believe the answer is yes as of right now. Is Paige Bjorkus playing in the GBO? That I honestly have no idea. I haven't looked at.
Fairly certain she is.
I haven't looked at the pre-reg. I just know I'm going to be there. Chris Dickerson is the pick. C. Dick is definitely a good pick. I wouldn't disagree with you there. Ricky is playing in a Flex C tier on Friday in Kentucky. Yeah, I was going to say we didn't preface or talk about it too much because we don't have too much going on there, but Bowling Green Amateur Championships taking place this weekend, so good luck to everyone out there. Yes, Dickerson and Oakley are definitely good picks. We'll be rolling into Monday before noon for GBO. Can't wait. Sounds good, Will. We'll see you out there.
I think we're going to be rolling in probably later Monday night.
Correct. What's the percentage of people picking double G for Skip Ace? Like 90%? Over 80? Yeah, I'm sure a ton of people are.
Did his rating go up or down?
If it did, I don't know by how much, only because
he doesn't have a lot on there yet.
Yeah, and the cutoff was probably about 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
Terry, do you remember the other Ricky in the putting finals at GBO? That's my friend. He almost beat Ricky. Yes, I do remember that last year. That was pretty funny. And Mike Max says Paige is playing. Doss will be playing. Yes.
He's
going with Steve Dodge from my... yeah, Steve Dodge. That's right. Steve Dodge registered. Well, we were in Jonesboro. He registered, and he was second on the waiting list. He may have gotten in now. Do you have it up? You should look and see if he got into the event, because for those that don't know, Steve Dodge, your pro tour director, and we said, well, you're going to go play Masters? He's like, no.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's like, no, I'll play Open. I want to beat the best. And
Steve Dodge rated 930 round. He made it in. 939.
That's awesome.
I can't wait.
Yes, maybe I'll. Yes,
put him on a featured card.
I said the same thing.
That would be great.
It would be. Matt Oram, former Guns N' Roses drummer, plays disc golf. Nice. Okay.
Wait,
did Ricky lose all his money in Vegas? Why is he playing a C tier? I think he's just hanging out in Kentucky.
Yeah. Matt Oram was the name of the Guns N' Roses.
I gotcha. All right. Zach B, 8 top pros playing with ripped cards. Yes, that could be funny. Good night, all. Team Howell 123 says, can't wait for the next week's podcast. Thanks for all you do. Thank you so much, Team
not Matt
Howell.
It's Matt Sorum.
Yeah, that is funny though.
It's very funny.
Will he be playing in Five Fingers Vibrams? That's a good question. He might be. I'd pay money to watch Steve play. Maybe. We'll see if he's on an early enough card. He might have to get filmed. Dad's Drunk says, Terry, why you gents all gussied up? Dad's Drunk, I just look this good once in a while.
This is what I wear to work.
This is what I wear to work.
You don't have a job.
I work for myself. No particular dressing up. But I was just really excited to give away a whole bunch of baskets earlier today. But I'm usually business casual most days.
Yeah, I would say that.
I wouldn't consider myself a sloppy or too casual of a dresser. Yeah, in fact, never. I'm almost never in public, and this doesn't mean just sloppy or casual, but never in public will you not see me in some form of a collared shirt for whatever bar that sets. So that's all. Terry, can you get hammered on one of your GVO podcasts again this year?
I'm thinking there's a good chance. See us Tuesday night when we're at the bar.
I don't know. Only. Yes, maybe. All right. The dude says, spent. Going to bed. Thanks for the show, guys. Thank you to the dude.
Yeah, we are not much longer for this podcast either.
Terry has a briefcase full of saltine crackers. I'm not sure what the joke is or reference is. Yeah, I started the whole tear the plastic off the laptop movement last year when Terry was wasted. It didn't matter. It stayed on there all week. So I'm going to be tearing the plastic off something else, though.
No, you're not.
I don't know what that means. No, I won't be. Yeah, I think we can call it, though. I think we've had a pretty good night, unless you guys have anything you want to finish up with us. Johnny, can we get an alternate for the Survivor? Maddie pissed me off. No alternates.
No. Let me address that real quick. There's somebody else that asked that. To me, an alternate in Survivor
defeats the whole purpose.
Makes no sense. I understand it sucks when your one player pulls out, and there's no way to predict it.
Pulls out of being filmed?
No, pulls out of the whole event.
Oh, okay.
So, and I get it. That sucks. That it's not like you picked the wrong person because they played bad that week or whatnot. But to me, part of the Survivor portion is, come hell or high water, you pick the right person and you get one chance at it. That's, it's like someone complaining like, oh, I picked the Packers, but Rodgers got hurt on the first play. And it's like, yeah, that's really too bad. I know it sucks and I don't want to see it. Yeah, on porpoise. So yeah, you'll never see an alternate for the Survivor pick ever, as long as I run this. Sorry. I do love the alternates in the regular skip ace portion, but not for that Survivor. That Survivor, I think, is very hard and fast. This is it. So, sorry.
Carver says, remember Kramer on Seinfeld had the briefcase of crackers pretending he was a businessman? I did not remember or think of that reference, so, but thank you for clarifying, because it was a pretty obscure one. Do we have anything?
Vandalay, yeah.
Special plan for the 200th? It's funny, because just tonight, I was thinking like, oh, that would be kind of cool if our 200th goes down at GBO, and it's not going to.
No, because we won't. I mean, are we going to label each of the individual nights a new podcast, or are we going to kind of keep it just the Tuesday night will be 192, and then next Tuesday is 193.
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we have in the past, but I don't know.
We've done it both ways.
Okay, so we're super consistent.
Super consistent.
Here's the one thing, and maybe you should clarify before I say it out loud, but I will anyway. And this I feel like is important because I never want anyone, whether it's my Patreon account or my exclusive one or the Smashbox one, which we do together, people feel like we're getting over on them or fleecing them. Next week, whatever we release, we won't be counting that as a separate.
Oh God, no! For Patreon,
a separate Patreon occurrence for each night. So just know that.
Just the Tuesday night one, like our normal podcast, will be a Patreon one for the Patreon supporters.
Yes. So just so people know that, and some people would be like, "I don't really care. Go ahead and and count it as a."
That's why I put a restriction on it.
Yeah, or whatever. But I just want people to know and that we will not. Somebody's like, "Oh yeah, they're going to do a podcast every day for a month." So just one occurrence for the Patreon side, just so you know. JVD, my side pot league is rolling smoothly, and the 2 draft leagues went great. The first ever disc golf fantasy drafts. Super fun leagues.
Oh, it's awesome, Dad's
Good to hear, buddy. And good night, everyone. Thanks, Flip Flat says. And Nathan Lee says June 20th, ?
That would be maybe our 200th on June 20th.
Oh, if you're doing that's some math.
Maybe.
Maths.
I can pull up the list. I have
June 20th, which would be the day before I leave for the Utah, which would also be the weekend after the potential.
I've got June 19th in here. Oh, maybe it's June 20th for you, Nathan, because you are on another side of the world. So yeah, I've got June 19th here.
And that would fall right after the potential disc golf experience down in Kansas City weekend. So anyway, it's something we could all get figured out. One weekend at a time is what I want to say right now. The Disc Golf Talent Show. Yeah. Okay. Uh-oh. Oh, I just got an update from one Nate Doss. Let's see if it's appropriate to read and pass on. I had to switch phones. And well, back, I don't have access to Voxer, so if you tried to hit me up, just text for now. All right, well, we'll get to the bottom of Nate Doss's story, him and Val. But we'll see him there.
We're going to wrap this up.
Are we?
We are.
I don't want to. No, I'm just kidding. All right, guys. Thank you guys so much. All the love.
Give away?
I got all exactly. All sorts of support. We do appreciate it. Of course, again, thank you to Steve Hill and Scott Stokely in our regular show, along with Dynamite in our after show. Thank you to all our Patreon supporters, everyone tuning in on the live chat. We appreciate it. You guys are amazing. Looking forward to an entire week of GBO action, along with some silliness and chaos as it unfolds. So for Johnny V, Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks for joining us. That's been Podcast 191's after show. We'll see you next week when you step inside the Smashbox.
This is the last time you're going to see the snow logo.